Welcome to Dreadful Digest, where we look at your favorite horror novels and rip apart their adaptations. I'm one of your hosts, Tessa Nelson.
I am another one of your hosts. I'm another one of your hosts, Michael Estrada.
And I'm one of your hosts, Sam. We have a special guest.
We do.
I wasn't sure I was supposed to say anything.
Yeah, we should have introduced you better. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is our favorite guest so far.
I can't think of a better guest that we've had so far. But maybe I'll think on it. Who are you?
Yeah.
I'm.
How'd you get in here?
I just snuck in. Sibia.
Well, welcome. I don't know if y'all know this, but Sibia helps with the research. She's our research assistant, so she makes us sound good and smart.
Mm-hmm.
So
We
thank
aren't
you for that.
otherwise, So thank God.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you, why did you want to cover what we're covering today, which is Candyman?
Yeah. Candyman's always been a movie that's from childhood that I think I've always known about it and was super into. But I was telling Sam before the record that I don't think I ever saw it not edited, like on cable. I grew up, I'm a cable kid, so it was probably on TNT that I saw it. So this is the first time I saw it actually, like fully.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Nothing censored this time.
Right, exactly.
Awesome.
But yeah, just the childhood fave. That always freaked me out.
Yeah. What about you guys? How'd you hear of Candyman?
It's just one of those ones you like hear thrown in with like the classic like monsters of that era, like Freddy and Jason and all those things. You kind of he's not always as popular, but I feel like you just hear that thrown in with those. But I never knew anything, so I always assumed the movie was similar to those types of movies. But that was how I always heard about him, and I just thought of it as like that movie as like, oh, it's like the less popular of those, which I we'll talk about. I have definitely been proven wrong. I like this movie a lot, but yeah, that's all I ever knew about this.
So you thought it was like a typical slasher movie?
Yeah, just like a guy that kills people with like a knife, or I guess he had a hook. I think I saw like a picture with him in the hook. I was like, oh, he kills people with a hook. Yeah, lame. And I never really cared at all, ever. To be fair, I never cared about anything horror, but it's just, and yeah, that was all I ever knew about it.
Cool. What
Right,
about you, Sam?
Yeah, I knew less than all of y'all. I had not heard of Candyman until 2021 when the remake came out. That's because my friend in college, Shane, shout out Shane. My friend in college posted about. Actually, friend is an exaggeration. He doesn't. Now I feel weird about bringing up Shane. But
Shout out Shane.
Shout out Shane. If he sees this, he's gonna be like, "Why is she mentioning me?" But he posted a review of it. He said he really liked it, and he was a huge horror head. So, I literally hadn't heard of it at all. And I didn't watch the remake even when he posted about it, but that's when it became on my radar. And because he said he loved it so much, I was like, oh, this must have like some merit to it. But I'd never even didn't know it was a book, didn't know there was a 1992 movie, hadn't even heard of him as like a folklore story at all. So this was illuminating.
Cool. I had heard of Candyman as a horror fan. I feel like you just kind of hear about him. It's a staple in the horror community. Tony Todd is a staple. And yeah, I was surprised that I had never seen it before this. And I'm glad I finally watched it. It had been like something I'd been meaning to watch. And yeah, I'm glad we did it. Glad we did it for the pod.
So wait, is Sibia the only one who saw the movie?
so.
Or what?
Yeah.
I feel like that's rare.
So Sibia's our
mostly
expert.
you guys have seen
it.
or read or something.
Yeah. This
But-
was my first completely clean one that we've done, I think. Like, in terms of having no background with it at all.
Wow.
You guys like me this time. Wow.
Yeah,
the
I feel like
roles are
Michael right
reversed,
now.
yeah.
I didn't know about Clive Barker until recently, though.
Really?
Maybe a few years ago, right?
Don't tell Clive.
So you didn't know it was based on a
No,
short
I didn't know it was
short
based on a story. No.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't either. So until researching and, making up our master sheet of horror movies we want to cover,
Oh, yeah.
which we will get through all of them.
And more. Drop your Rex in the comments. What
Yeah.
are you?
Dude, freaking drop your wrist.
So we can add it to the master sheet. Alrighty. Let's get into our quick non-spoiler review of Candyman for those who haven't seen it. Or talk about the book, whatever y'all feel like talking about.
Non-spoiler review. Like It's been so long since we've done this. Am I summarizing it or am I just saying, like, is this my letterbox review basically?
Basically, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like a 2-sentence thing.
Okay.
know.
You know,
It's hard.
yeah, this one is different. No, I don't know. This is great content.
For
Yeah, I love
those
it.
who, well, y'all don't know watching, we took a break during the holidays, so that's
I
why
haven't.
we're a little. Oh, okay.
Oh, dude. Okay, what's that? It's like a creepypasta where it's like man hook door. You know what I'm talking about? That's my non-spoiler review. of this.
Man hook door.
No, you know what I'm talking about, right? Emerson knows. What is it?
It's like the scary stories.
Yes, but it's like man hook claw. I have to look it up, but that is my official non-spoiler review, Candyman. Let me find it.
That's your non-spoiler review.
I don't know what I'm supposed to take from that.
No, wait, hang on. I'm so sorry. I have to tell you what the man door hand hook car door. That's my dad. You don't know this? Emerson's the only
No,
one who
I don't
appreciates what I'm
remember
bringing
that.
up right now. It's a creepypasta from like, so I'll read you the whole thing.
I'm good.
It's like a whole
long is the
story.
How long it is. No,
Oh.
just how long it is.
Okay, if you can speed run it.
This is good shit.
This is good content. So also for all of our listeners who are not familiar with Mandalorian,
Jesus. Go ahead.
this is like an old internet
No, go
thing.
ahead.
This is season 2, y'all.
Oh my
Starting
god.
off strong.
I'm crying. I can't read this because I'm gonna cry laughing.
Do you want me to read
Yes, dude, because you have to understand like what I'm referencing.
it? Okay, hold on.
Go off.
Hold on. Man and girl go out to drive under moonlight. They stop at an a side of road. He turned to his girl and say, "Baby, I love you very much." "What is it, honey?" "Our car is broken down. I think the engine is broken. I'll walk and get some more fuel." "Okay, I'll stay here and look after our stereo."
What?
"There have been news report of stairs being stolen." "Good idea."
Stairs?
It's supposed to be stereo, but it has an S
how's
instead of
it
an O.
spelled?
It's just STERES. It was supposed to be stereo, but it's an S instead of an O. "Good idea. Keep the doors locked no matter what. I love you, sweaty." It's supposed to be sweetie. So the guy left to get full for the car. After 2 hours, the girl say, "Where is my baby? He was supposed to be back by now." Then the girl hear a scratching sound and voice say, "Let me in." The girl doesn't do it. And then after a while, she goes to sleep. The next morning, she wakes up and finds her boyfriend still not there. She gets out to check, and man door hand hook car door.
Actually, now that he's read it, it sounds familiar. Actually,
I do recognize this
Man
a
door
bit. I
hand
did
hook
not
car
know
door.
the whole story.
No.
My official review, Candyman. Mandor hand hook car door.
All right, that was worth it.
That's
That
great.
was-
That's
Thank
great.
you. All right, who's gonna follow that one out?
I don't know if any of us got something as good as that.
Holy fuck. man.
I cried laughing at that. Oh my god. Mandor hand hook car door.
was creepypasta basically fan fiction for horror?
Um,
Or not fan fiction, but you know what I mean?
like in
People
I think,
just
More like stories that people
I think-
would
yeah.
make.
just submit.
yeah, just I
Okay.
mean, obviously, and usually, famously, at least to me, creepypasta is like you know,
Slender Man.
Well, that's not a creepypasta. That is like a 4chan like green
Yeah,
text.
yeah.
That's
Exactly.
that's not. It's like
Okay.
that's not like. Well, I guess creepypasta can be anything because
Yeah,
But it's
creepypasta.
user submitted.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly.
Oh
What
my
would be
God.
creepy about it is that it would show like pop up on forums. It'd be
Yeah.
reposted, so you never knew who the original writer of it was.
This was like pre the Reddit being like a repository for everything.
Sure.
So it was just
Right.
like, this is a scary thing I read. And it was called creepypasta because it was like a reference to the phrase copy pasta. You copy and paste it and you send it to all your friends.
Oh.
But these are creepy stories. So it's not a copy
did not know
pasta.
that.
It's a creepypasta. And it would be some spooky story. It was like, I saw it on this forum. It's probably true.
Well, that works for this movie because it's all about
Exactly.
Yes.
legends
Exactly.
and stories. So
And-
that's interesting.
bringing it back.
on
Bringing
theme.
it back.
That's
And we're-
interesting.
Somebody had to. So
Hey, full circle. We're professionals.
Well, I'll dive into my non-spoiler review, switching things up a little bit. I really loved both pieces of media, Candyman and the short story, and I think the movie really does get the feel of the short story, the tone, and they complement each other. I feel like if you like Candyman, you'll like the little short story and vice versa. So I think you should check out both things.
Much better review than what I gave. Whatever. Yikes.
I guess I can go into my review. I thought the short story was pretty good. This is probably, maybe the first time I'm trying to think of other stuff we've reviewed. It's been a while because we went on break, like we were saying. I'm trying to think if I liked both versions a lot. Like the same amount that I've liked this. Because the short story was a fun short story. Had a good time. Great. Little. It wasn't like very. It was like an hour. I listened to audiobooks because I can't read.
Yeah, it was about an hour.
Yeah. It was like an hour long. So real quick, fun, concise, very good. And I really enjoyed the movie. This might have been my favorite, if not one of my favorite movies on the podcast so far.
Interesting. Cool.
I don't typically like horror movies that much. But this movie,
Perfect pod for you.
That's why I'm here.
Can you
I'm
clip
the
just
guy.
him saying that, and that's the ad for this episode.
I don't know if we've ever gone into full detail of why I was even invited on the podcast. I don't know if we've ever fully
We
explained
haven't
it.
gotten into
That's
the
a bonus
lore.
episode.
Because we'll get into it here. Perfect time. How many episodes in? We'll tell you why I'm here.
Episode 10 or
Yeah,
9? 10?
10. I never liked horror, never watched horror, never had any interest in watching horror, and I don't read. The two things that this podcast is about. Yeah, and so Tessa was like, "You should be on. You should be on to be like the guy who doesn't know anything." I guess.
You said that?
No, not in those words.
No. I would be an interesting perspective, something along
Exactly.
those lines.
Oh.
But I knew
We
what she
have,
meant.
Like a fresh perspective.
Like you're kind of the middle.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
the super horror fan, and
Yeah.
you're not.
and I'm
Yeah.
coming in
So-
everything new. I don't
that
know
makes a
anything.
lot of sense. I never
Fluidity.
knew that. I didn't know why he was here.
Yeah, I know. So every time the episode we stop rolling, Sam goes, "Why is that guy?" here?"
Yeah, and I pulled
Yeah.
Tessa aside and I
And
go,
then
we
she
need to get rid of
spits
him.
at my- she spits at my shoes. But yeah, that's why I'm here. So it's rare, I think, so far that I've really liked a movie a lot because I like movies more than books. But this movie had sauce. I really like this movie.
Nice.
The
quite a bit.
1992.
The 1992, yeah.
We'll get into so part 2. We're going to be covering the 2021 Candyman, which is like a re-quel, sequel, reboot
I think
thing.
they like to
We'll
call
get
it a
into
spiritual sequel.
Yeah,
Because it has sequels,
It does.
but it's almost like the new Halloween where they were like, forget those sequels,
Yeah.
and they meet up. It does that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because there's 2 sequels that happen pretty close after the 92 version. And then they just say, forget those.
Yeah.
And then there's one in
That's
what,
fair enough.
2021?
Yeah.
2021, yeah.
2021.
So I'll also be talking about the sequels that are not canon anymore, in the next episode. So check it out.
But yeah, speaking of the 92 one, really liked it a lot. Good stuff.
Perfect.
2
Sibia,
thumbs up.
how did
Fine
you
holiday
feel
fun.
about it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, watching it as an adult was interesting. I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't remember. This is a bad review. It was different than what I remembered in a good way. You know how you watch movies from your childhood that you liked a lot, and you're like, oh.
Sometimes they turn out worse when you rewatch
So
them.
pleasantly surprised. It was kind of an interesting modern gothic horror movie. The short story was really well written. I want to read some more. Clive Barker.
Yeah.
Yes, I love Clive Barker. I love the way his style of writing is very interesting. And we'll get into more of my thoughts on that. But are y'all ready to learn about Candyman and the Forbidden?
Whoa.
Because Michael's got some synopses for us.
Oh.
Which one do you want me to do first? The Forbidden?
Let's do the
Forbidden.
Forbidden. I feel like
Okay.
less people are probably familiar with it.
Okay, so The Forbidden is a short story by Clive Barker. And hold on, let me get my little notes out real quick. Okay. The Forbidden follows Helen, a British college student, and she's studying, I believe it's semiotics.
So she is British.
Yeah, in the short story,
Yeah.
they're in
For
England.
some reason, I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure if whatever.
Well,
That's one of the main
I can get
differences,
into
yeah.
it. I can get
Oh,
into it with
okay.
the audiobook, but it didn't sound British. All right, we can get into it when I start reviewing the audiobook. But she's a British college student. She's studying semiotics and graffiti.
Yeah, it's called Graffiti: The Semiotics of Urban Despair. That's
Okay.
her thesis.
That's her thesis. Okay.
Yeah.
And she decides she's gonna immerse herself amongst the pores and go take pictures of graffiti. And that's how she's gonna do it. And she gets approached by some of the locals. A woman, I believe it's Anne Marie as well.
Yeah,
in the story, Anne Marie and her baby. And she gets told some spooky, gruesome stories about some murders that have happened in the town. And Anne Marie shows her they're called maisonettes. They're
Yeah.
like little apartments, I guess. But
I
they're
kind of imagined them like brownstones, like there's one room or like single level apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's like a little community called, it's the Spectre Street Estates. And it's like a little community of maisonettes. And Anne Marie points her to one that has a bunch of cool graffiti. And Helen takes some photos and really is enamored by this one piece that's like a one piece. And I'm so sorry. I'm brain
Every
rotted.
time.
I'm so sorry. I literally didn't even want to do that. I'm so sorry.
You were compelled. It's in your
fully
nature.
brain rotted. All right, sorry. My bad. And she's really enamored by this one piece of graffiti. And there's like a door with like a mouth on it. It's like a big wide open mouth. Really cool. She's like, this is going to be what my thing is about. And she goes back home and has like a dinner with her rich college friends who are really annoying, and her husband Trevor, and who's also
Trevor.
annoying.
Trevor.
Trevor. This is our
Brother.
first mention of Trevor. Here we go. And he's like a dickhead, and he's really rude and dismissive of Helen. And they're like, Helen, these poor people are lying to you. This isn't real. And Helen's like, no, it is real. And they make like a bet or whatever to see if it is real or not. So she decides to go back to keep studying the graffiti and keep learning more about these supposed murders that don't have any, they haven't found a culprit or anything. They don't know any, and some of them aren't even in newspapers. It's kind of weird. It's a mystery. But the next time she goes down there, everyone treats her weird, hostile. They kind of ignore her. And nobody wants to tell her and talk to her anymore, including Anne Marie, who's very, very odd, acting very odd. And she goes back to her room since no one will talk to her and to take more pictures. And it's blocked off, and she hears a dog. This is important for the end of the book, but I literally don't know why. This is the one thing I'm confused about.
Yeah, she thinks there's a dog boarded up in the masonette
Well,
she had went into.
It's because she goes back for the dog, right?
Yeah, at
Yeah.
the end,
Save
which
the
is
dog.
why it's important, but
Okay.
I don't know why else. But anyways, she hears a dog. She can't get in to take her pictures, so she goes home, hears on the news that Anne Marie's baby was killed. And she finds out through like looking up the time, the baby was dead when she went to visit Anne Marie the second time. So it was dead by the time she got there, and nobody would say anything to her. So she's confused. She doesn't know what to do.
Well, she saw people like surrounding the house.
Well, she
and-
spoke to Anne Marie that morning.
Yes.
The baby was
She
already
wouldn't let
dead
her
when
in
they
the
spoke.
apartment.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the baby was already dead when she was speaking to Anne Marie, but
But there was
and-
like a crowd later in the day.
Yeah.
after the news came out that
Was it?
I believe so.
It's been a while since we read this.
Yeah.
It's been a few weeks.
But yeah, they find out about that, and Helen decides she's going to go attend the funeral for the baby, and she sees Anne Marie and the baby's casket in a little funeral procession, and then Helen is like, "I got to go save that dog." This is why the dog is important. She's like, "I got to go take that dog out of the room because it's locked in there." Okay, and so she goes back to the room with the graffiti. This time it's not blocked off, and she finds the baby's corpse in the room. It wasn't in the funeral procession. And then for the first time, Candyman appears, and he tells her his whole spiel about how he is immortal, how she can become immortal too, become rumor, become legend, and offers to kill Helen and become legend like him. She declines, and then he knocks her out with a kiss, I think, right? Is
Yeah.
that how it happens? And Anne Marie comes into the room, takes the baby, and goes off to put it on this local, there's like a pyre. There's
There's a bonfire.
they have a bonfire like pyre that they do, like, I think the kid says weekly.
Yeah, it's pretty frequent.
Yeah, it's absurdly frequent
Yes,
how often they burn things.
And
But
Helen
yeah.
wakes up and sees Anne
Yeah.
Marie take the baby.
Helen gets knocked out by a kiss, and then like sort of half wakes up, sees Anne Marie take the baby, and Helen is like, "Oh my god, these guys knew about the baby the whole time. They probably knew about the other murders. They're probably responsible for the other murders. This is some kind of cult. This Candyman thing is like a thing they're worshiping and sacrificing people to. I need to go get the baby's corpse as evidence for the police so they can know that this cult is a thing. And so she runs to go chase after Anne-Marie, sees Anne-Marie put the baby inside this funeral pyre, this big bonfire pyre thing. Helen goes in after the baby. Candyman appears in there, holds her down, and Helen and the baby are both burned. They're both immolated.
Can I add 2 things to your summary?
Sure.
These are just 2 things that I thought were interesting as well that are also in every other version. Also, when she goes into the house, there's this graffiti that says "Sweets to the Sweet." I'm only bringing that up because it comes up in the adaptation, or in the film adaptations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how it does. And then also, there's
From Hamlet.
yes, and there's also candy and razor blades on the floor when she goes into the house
as
the
an offering.
first
Right.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's also why she thinks that they're like sacrificing things, sort of. To
It's there the first time in the movie. I believe it's not
It's
there
not.
in the short story.
is it when she goes? Oh, and there's also
it's-
this big painting
Yes.
of a face, and I think it's like the door is the mouth. I'm
Yeah.
only bringing those 3 little details up because I think it's cool how they do them in the movie versions.
Yeah,
and I
I
thought we could talk
kind
about
of mentioned it in the summary, but I didn't do a good job of describing it. It's like a door, and then there's a mural of a guy
Yes.
like with his mouth open, where the door
And
is,
she's, like,
is
really
the
disturbed.
throat. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's really disturbed by it, but she also like really thinks it's interesting, and that's like her main
her
focus.
That's like a
yeah.
hold over her a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like the whole thing. It ends pretty bad for Helen. She
Yeah.
gets burned alive.
Yikes.
Not good.
What a way to go.
He's very respectful though. He's like,
That-
come
it's
on,
key.
let me kill you.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Can I
no.
get it?
What
Yeah.
is
also-
flesh if not to be destroyed?
She's like, that's a good point. It is interesting though in the book how like romantic-ish, like
In
you know
both
what I mean?
versions.
Both
In both-
versions.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's true actually. In the 1992 movie,
think-
it is
yeah.
very like you can tell that she's like entranced
Yeah.
or whatever.
I felt it more in the movie than I did in the short story.
Really?
Yeah.
I
The-
felt it a bit in the short story.
I felt it in the short story with the whole kiss thing.
Yeah.
And also the bees on his body.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention he's covered in bees.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
whole-
He's covered in bees.
Bees are like a big part of every.
And he's a
like,
hook for a hand. Oh, that's important.
Oh, yeah.
because
Yes.
because otherwise my summary doesn't make any sense. And I need you all to know that
Oh, yeah.
Candyman has a hook for a
Candyman
hand.
has a hook for a hand. And
Yes.
he kills people with it.
Yes.
That's another thing that happens.
That's his thing.
That is his thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really describe Candyman at all in the short story version, but yeah, you're right. He has a hook for a hand, and he has bees inside of his like chest cavity, just
Yeah.
living in him.
It's such a cool visual.
Yeah,
It's so
Love it.
interesting. I don't even know how he came up with that. It's so interesting.
yeah. I don't know.
Actually couldn't tell you.
Really? How he came up with it?
Well, on the DVD, there's a special feature. Shout out to that DVD because it gave me a lot. There's in England, there's a golden syrup tin, and it has a picture. Well, I don't know why. It sounds strange. Of a lion, like a decaying corpse that has like bees flying on it, and then it says, it doesn't say "sweets to the sweet," but something similar. I have to look it up. But he said that's kind of where he got the idea.
That's
Okay.
A little
crazy.
bit.
That's so interesting.
This is why we need to have Sibia on.
Yeah.
Also,
I didn't watch the
toilet,
stuff.
the public toilet
Oh yeah,
maiming
yeah.
is from stories that his grandmother told him to warn him about going to public toilets.
What?
Yeah.
Damn.
Why would she say that?
I don't
That's such
know.
a
That
scary
story?
That's the
story.
old school raising of children.
maybe-
Just scare them.
Should we talk about that real quick, just so they know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
he
yeah.
might have added some Clive Barker flair to it,
Yeah.
but
I
it's still
mentioned
crazy.
in the synopsis that Helen gets told like some gruesome stories about like local murders. One of them is of a mentally disabled man who is attacked in a bathroom, like a public bathroom, has his genitals cut off and flushed down the toilet in front of him, and is just left there unable to like scream for help because of his disability. And it is really disturbing. It's a
Pretty
really
messed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really messed up story. And you saying that Clive Barker was told this story by his
grandmother.
grandma.
That's what he said in the interview.
Oh,
Jesus.
I'm
Shout
so
out Clive
excited
Barker's
to
grandma.
learn from you today. I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't look up anything about him, but I love Clive Barker, so I'm excited. Alrighty, film.
Oh, film
get into it.
synopsis.
You
Okay.
ready?
Yeah, we can go right into the next one. A lot of similarities, but some important differences in the conclusion and how things kind of move around. So the movie follows Helen Lyle, Helen again, but I don't know if the short story ever gives his last name. It might, but I don't remember. But Helen Lyle, as she attempts to study urban legends, I think also semiotic. I think she also says semiotics in the movie, but I can't quite remember. But she's studying the urban legends, and she hears stories from a local housing project, I believe, called Cabrini Green. And from there, she hears these stories about the Candyman. She's like, oh, perfect. I'm studying urban legends and folklore, and there is like one, and there's apparently like a recent murder that has been attributed to the Candyman. She's like, this is great. For my paper, this is going to be awesome. And she decides to go down there and investigate with her friend Bernadette, who's also a college student. I think she's just helping her with the study as
They're
well.
both working on
They're
it
both,
together.
yeah, it's both of their project. And then Helen goes down there and she does some real white woman shit, and she starts climbing through holes in walls just for no real reason. Helen, why? And like
Bernadette is also being like, do not.
it's like,
Let's leave.
please stop.
Why are we going here?
This is so dumb. And Helen's up in there, and she finds a room with the painting from the first book, or from the short story. It's also in this, with the mural of the door being a mouth. Except it's not a door, it's like a hole in the movie.
wall, yeah.
She crawls through it and then like turns around, and it's a cool shot. And she finds this room and starts to, I think she takes pictures of it as well there.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be dedicated to some kind of thing. She finds candy wrappers with razor blades in it and stuff like that in there. And she's like, this is awesome. This is just what I've been looking for. And then she meets Anne-Marie McCoy, same character name from the short story, except I think they add a last name, Anne-Marie McCoy, and her infant son, Anthony. And they get an interview with her, and she talks about Candyman as well. And then later they learn from her husband, Trevor. Trevor's in the movie as well. He's in the movie more than he is in the story, and he's worse.
Which is so
That is-
awesome.
that's one of the
He's
things I love about the
best.
adaptations is how
Yeah.
much they amp up how much Trevor sucks.
The movie,
Yeah.
breaking from the synopsis a little bit, the movie does a great job of taking things that are in the short story, not really like taking things out, but just adding more. Just making
Yeah.
things
Developing
like
it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So they learn from her husband Trevor's one of his colleagues, Philip Purcell, Professor Philip Purcell, also in the short story, a very minor character. Learned from him that the Candyman, he'd actually studied the Candyman previously, and he was the original Candyman, I believe. I think we get his name. It's Daniel Robitaille. I think, did we get it in the first movie?
I don't think in the first. No.
Did we not get his name? Okay, I was wrong about that. You
So
were
that
talking
comes
about-
up in this.
Yeah, as usual. I was right.
Yeah, whatever.
It comes up in the second one.
Whatever. I don't know. So I don't know if we get his name in the first one, but that is his name. But we learned that he was the son of a freed slave post Civil War, and he was an artist, a really good artist, and he fell in love with one of his client's daughters, and they had a relationship, and he got her pregnant, and then her dad did not like this. White man did not appreciate this son of a former slave getting his daughter pregnant, sent a mob after him. They beat him. They cut his arm off with a rusty saw, and then they slathered him in honey and let bees sting him to death.
And they shoved a hook in it.
Oh, that's right. They cut his hand off. And they shoved
Hook
the hook.
is important.
The hook is a big thing. Shoved the hook in it. I don't know why they did that, but sure they did. They cut his hand off and then put a hook in it. That is the story.
It's kind of weird because it's like, why would you give him?
him a weapon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Why? Like, what is that?
It's
But
true.
that's the story. And then, hold on. Oh, yeah. And then after some stuff with the public bathroom that we don't really need to get into, it's not super important for the synopsis, Helen encounters the Candyman in a parking garage. And he speaks directly to her, because I believe at some point earlier she says his name 5 times into a mirror.
Yeah.
This is an
Yeah.
important thing that is not in the short story at all, I don't think.
No.
Right. Right.
If you say his name 5 times in the mirror, Candyman will appear. This is part of the urban legend. Helen does it at some point, I think maybe in Cabrini Green. I don't quite remember. But Candyman appears to her in a parking garage, and then I believe starts to explain who he is and the whole rumors thing and how he's legend, and tells her that because she doubted him, he now has to go and start to kill innocent people to prove that he's real, that his legend is real. And then he knocks her out with like psychic energy. He has like the ability to just like hypnotize you and kind of knock you out. And he does that. And then Helen wakes up after being knocked out, covered in blood, in Anne-Marie's house. And she discovers that her dog has been decapitated. Seemingly, Helen may have done this. We don't know, but she's covered in blood. She's in the house. And her dog's been decapitated. And Anne-Marie's baby, Anthony, is not there. and the crib seems to be filled with blood as well. We're not sure if he's dead or if he's missing. Helen is arrested, but Trevor bails her out.
One good thing Trevor does in his life.
Yeah.
Except he wasn't home when she called.
Right. She calls him.
Oh, that's right.
And where's Trevor?
3 a.m.
Yeah, that is true.
With a student?
You can guess where he is.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a professor and he loves students.
He loves his
Yeah.
he loves his students.
He's really
We'll
open
get to
off
that.
his hours. Yeah.
After Helen gets home, though, Candyman is not done with her. He hypnotizes her kind of again and knocks her out, but this time kills her friend Bernadette and kind of frames Helen for the murder of Bernadette. Sort of how he did it with the dog and the baby. Sort of more implied in that case, I guess, but this time it's hard to disprove that Helen was the one that did it. So this time Helen doesn't go to jail. She goes right to a psych ward because she's talking about some ghost Candyman who did it and not her. This time, Trevor does not bail her out or try to help her. And instead, Candyman actually frees her. And I think informs her that Anthony is still alive at this point. I don't know when she gets that information. I wish I would have rewatched it. But
There's also a crazy scene where he's levitating over her.
Really
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
So
Really
sick.
cool.
When she's in the psych ward, and
I
she's like,
think she's getting like psychic flashes. Like she
Yes.
sees a
Yeah,
room.
and
She sees
I
a
don't
room
know.
with Anthony in it, but I don't know when. It's at some point
it's
in
in her
this.
hut.
Yeah.
I think at this point she learns that Anthony is actually still alive in Candyman's like lair. Candyman frees her, and she heads straight home to Trevor. And oopsie daisy, Trevor has literally she's been in there for like a week or something.
A month.
It's a month.
Yeah.
A month.
Still.
Trevor, what was going on?
Still, Trevor
Your
is
wife.
literally living with another college student, another woman, and repainting the house.
has the
An ugly
audacity
green
to let
or-
her paint it.
Dude,
It's 1
ugly
month.
coral.
1 month.
1 month in a
That was
psych ward,
wild.
and he's
I was
like,
like-
I guess that's it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna start dating my students now and
So, yeah.
repainting the house. Life's over for
As
Helen.
you do.
Yeah.
Bright pink.
Helen rightfully freaks out on him and leaves, and then decides, fuck him. I'm gonna go save.
Oh, there's a great scene in there
Yeah.
though where she's like, call the police.
Oh,
And she like hands
Do
them the
it.
phone and they're just like staring at her and she's like, call him.
So good.
I love that scene.
It was great.
Yeah.
And she goes to save Anthony. She goes to Candyman's lair. Candyman pulls the old classic, knocks her out again. The third time. Third time. When are you going to learn, Ellen?
It's kind of his thing.
Yeah, he loves doing that. Knocks her out again and takes Anthony and puts him in the there's also a bonfire, it's like a big pile of like furniture in the middle of the neighborhood. This is also a thing in the movie. He puts the baby in there, presumably to bait Helen, because Helen goes in after the baby. And right as she's about to save him, Candyman holds her down just like in the story. And I think the kids light the fire early because they see like
You see the hook. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Helen is carrying the hook.
She grabs a hook from somewhere. I don't
For
know.
some reason, she is carrying a hook, but
It helps her climb up the
Yeah, I guess it
mountain
does.
of
That's
furniture.
right. Yeah.
but one of the kids sees the hook like getting caught and like entering, but he doesn't see Helen, so he's like, "Oh my God, Candyman is in the bonfire thing. Let's light it up right now." And so
Light
they
it up.
yeah, just like that.
Keep going, Tessa.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
finish.
No, do the whole song.
Yeah.
You have to cut that for copyright.
This does not. I do not sound like Fall Out Boy. I think we're safe. Sorry.
But yeah, she goes in there. They light up the bonfire with Helen and the baby in it. Baby's still alive in this version.
Yeah.
Not dead.
Important.
Yes, the baby is
Very
not,
important.
Yes, very, very
As we
important.
learn, yeah.
Helen is lit on fire and Candyman's holding her down, but Helen manages to, I think she stabs Candyman with a piece of furniture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
With like a table leg or something, like a piece of wood, and manages to escape his grip, grab the baby, and make it out just in time for the baby to survive. But Helen does not. She is burned beyond repair and manages to just make it out before dying to the burns. And then we get like a little Marvel after credits scene kind of, but it's really the end of the movie. It's not an after credits scene. Trevor is distraught about losing his beloved Helen. Even though he ditched her in the psych ward for a younger girl, he's so distraught about losing Helen. Oh, my poor Helen, that he goes up to the bathroom mirror and he's looking at himself so sad. And he just keeps saying her name over and over and over again. And then Helen appears, just like Candyman does when you say his name 5 times. And then Helen kills Trevor.
Hell yeah.
Because now she is like the candy. She's her own kind of Candyman.
Candy woman.
She's become legend. She's become a story.
Should have been the sequel.
She's become a tale to tell from Cabrini Green, I guess. So she's now inherited that ability. And then the movie ends. That's it. That's like the end of the movie.
Yay. Thank you so much for that. Killer synopses.
You.
All right. So things are a little different this episode because I didn't do the research. Sibia did the research. So I am taking all this information in. I'm going to absorb it. And I'm very excited for Sibia to lead the research.
Take it away.
Sure. Okay, so I already revealed the grandmother inspiring the story, but
Yeah.
basically Clive Barker, that was his whole deal is he wants to put out weird shit in any form. That literally that's what he said on this featurette. Like he's also a painter. He writes theater, short stories, novels, and he directed Hellraiser. I was gonna say Hellboy. I was like, that's not right. Hellraiser. And but the books of blood are the short stories, and he's got different anthologies. But they came out and kind of didn't really do much until Stephen King kind of said something nice, and then it took off from there.
Oh, cool.
And
Thanks,
then
Steven.
yeah, no kidding.
You said Clive Barker is an artist as well?
Yeah,
I wonder if that's why they added that piece of lore to Candyman in the movies.
maybe.
'Cause that's not mentioned at all in the short story. He's just like
Okay.
a thing
Right.
that people worship.
Oh, that's
But he has
true.
no backstory
There's
in the
no.
short story.
Yeah, they added the whole backstory.
Yeah,
That's
and then
right.
the backstory in the movie, he's an artist who's like a really good artist.
The backstory actually in the movie, Tony Todd said that he and Virginia Madison kind of worked on it a little bit.
Who's
so-
Virginia Madison?
She's Helen.
Okay.
So it might not have been in the script on the pages, but also they took waltzing classes together, and they did a
wow.
lot together
Oh.
off screen to get the rapport, the chemistry, which worked out really well. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
then going to Tony Todd, he's like a theater actor. That's how he started. He went to a conservatory. He's from DC, and I think that he brought a lot of that into it, because he's got such presence. He's also
Yes.
6'5", which doesn't hurt.
Seriously.
Yeah.
He's got so much like gravitas.
Yeah.
He's,
Yeah.
he's so cool.
For me, I'm putting this in that I think that theater training and like specifically Shakespeare, because that's a different kind of
Yes. Yeah.
acting. I think that he brought that into it.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
He feels like he's like he's from
Yeah.
somewhere else. Even though he's just a guy, he
It's true.
he feels like so much bigger than
He's got
That's a good
charisma and
point,
presence
yeah. Mhm.
for sure. And then Virginia Madsen, she was kind of I don't want to say discovered, but she was cast in the original Dune, so David Lynch's Dune,
Oh.
and that
Shout out
put
David
her on the
Lynch.
map.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Whoa.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
David
Oh, yeah,
Lynch.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
David
Tony
Lynch.
Todd.
This is gonna come out
It's
long
true.
after they
Oh,
pass.
yeah.
But
Yeah, for whenever this
You know.
episode airs, David Lynch just passed away, unfortunately.
when we're recording
R.I.P.
this,
Yeah.
R.I.P. King.
But yeah, so she was in Dune, and then she was in a lot of teen dramas, and in this featurette that I watched, I got a lot of info from it.
That's good.
She knew she wasn't afraid of being typecast, but she also knew that she needed a role to break her out of the young, what do you call it, young ingenue or whatever. And so then when she got this, it kind of broke her out of it. It was a horror movie, and she was like a little bit older character, and also like really educated character, not just some teen drama. So
She plays Helen. by the way,
Helen.
And
Helen.
Tony Todd plays Candyman.
yes. Also, she's an Oscar-nominated actress. She was nominated for an Oscar for Sideways in 2004, I
Oh.
think.
I have heard of that movie.
I haven't seen it. I want to.
Yeah, it's a
Been
pretty
on the
good
list
one.
for a while.
Oh, and I wanted to shout out Cassie Lemons because that's Helen's friend Bernadette.
Yeah.
She had a similar part in Silence of the Lambs. She was the BFF of Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh my god.
She's only in a few scenes, so you probably wouldn't recognize
Well, no,
her.
it's funny because I did recognize her,
Oh,
but
yeah?
I just wrote it off because I was like, I don't know why I recognize her.
But now she's a director mainly. So I just wanted to shout out her because she's the first Black woman director that did a studio feature, which Eve's Bayou, financed by a studio, because Julie Dash did independently Daughters of the Dust. So I thought that would
She's
be,
the first?
and that was 1998, I think, ish.
For a studio film?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
but I'm kind of leaping ahead to the next episode, but Nia DaCosta's film is the first movie by a Black woman to cross 100 million, I want to say.
Okay.
Really?
Was it 100
Yeah,
million?
something like that.
Yeah,
Well,
it was a big number.
Yeah, so first movie directed by a woman that made that much money, basically.
Cool.
So some cool stuff.
Oh, it was like she was #1 at the box office.
Okay, maybe it was that, something like that.
Yeah,
I
so-
might have to Google that real quick. But yeah, so the original story obviously set in England, in Liverpool, but this one was set in Chicago. Bernard Rose, the director of the movie, had gone to a film festival in Chicago, and he liked the city. It was really dynamic. And then when he read Clive Barker's story, he optioned it, and he decided to change it to Chicago. And Cabrini Green was like an infamous housing project, and it doesn't exist anymore. It's been knocked down.
Was it a real place?
It was a
Cabrini
real
Green
place.
was what it was called? Okay.
Cabrini Green is what it was called, and they filmed there for a little bit. They had to hire some of the kids that were what's the word, just hanging around, just to give them some credibility and keep people from messing with them too much. They didn't have any issues as far as I know, except for the last day of filming, someone shot at their camera truck.
Yeah. Wait, did you hear about like there were like several gangs that were like existing at the time,
Right.
And so I don't know if
They put them in the movie, basically.
yeah.
Oh, really?
The guys
Yeah.
in like the I think it's purple and blue like outfits.
Oh.
Those
I
are
don't know
like
who
gang members.
specifically
The
and
ones
what
talking
gang.
to Helen.
Yeah.
Sure.
Bernadette, when
Yeah,
they
they're
walk
pretty
on
Almost like
by.
authentic.
harassing her when she's there by
Yeah.
herself. Is it that?
They're authentic characters.
Oh, that makes
Wow.
sense. I was thinking watching that. I was like, these are pretty cool extras.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, okay. So this came out in 92, right? So around that time, just to give it some historical context, when they were doing their test screenings was when the LA riots was happening. So Rodney King had been beaten by the LAPD, and then that culminated in those riots. So although they had already filmed the movie, like all that stuff leading up to it, it's post civil rights movement of the 60s, but you're still have, because that's what this movie is about, is like, well, it's not what it's about, but part of it is the housing segregation, because she lives in this nice condo, but it was supposed to be part of this project, but they kind of built this building to kind of separate that neighborhood from the rest of Chicago.
Yeah, it's like a plot point. The reason why she's crawling through holes in the wall is because she mentions like this
The
where I
layout.
live. Yeah, it's the same layout as
Yeah.
Cabrini Green, so I know how to get around.
Right.
in-
And then she does the thing with the medicine cabinet.
Yes.
Well, so in real life, Bernard Rose had read a story. There was a real story about a woman who was murdered because somebody pushed through a hole in the wall in her medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
And it's the same name. I think it was Ruthie Jean was the real person thing. And in the movie, I think they used the same name.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think I saw years ago, I saw like an Instagram reel or something of this woman who found a hole in the back of her medicine cabinet that went into the apartment next door.
Oh my.
So I was like, God, what a way to have someone like invade your house through your medicine cabinet.
That's so
Horrifying.
Yeah. New fear.
Yeah, luckily mine is up against an interior wall.
Mine is next to my roommate's room. I'm
Nice.
chilling unless she decides to
But
change her
can
mind
you,
about me.
when she showed Bernadette the medicine cabinet and there's just another medicine cabinet you could just push?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful.
Irresponsible building. Like, what are they
It's
thinking?
crazy.
It's way too
Bad.
easy.
No.
There's not like it's just whoop.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But I did want to mention also, as far as historical context, I think it's really interesting because it's the first slasher film to feature a black supernatural killer. There had been black horror movies, but they were mostly like those kind of exploitation movies, like Blackula. There is a really good one called Ganja and Hess that's not necessarily exploitation that I highly recommend. It's a vampire story.
Can I also say I didn't mention it, like how I knew about Candyman? I believe one of the reasons I know about this is because he is in like a fighting game. There's like an old
Oh,
fighting
is it
game.
Mortal Kombat? No, wait.
It looks
He was
like it.
supposed to be in Mortal Kombat, I think.
He might have like a recent one potentially.
Yeah, maybe. That's what it
You're
was.
close. The game that I'm talking about is like an older, like I think 90s game, and it looks like how the old Mortal Kombats look,
okay.
where it's like just people, like animated weird.
Side-
Yeah.
Side,
But he is like a playable character in it, and I've seen gameplay of that game, and I was like, who is that? Oh, that's what
That's pretty
Candyman
cool.
looks like, and he had like the hook hand. I didn't know what he looked like until I saw this like
That's
weird
fun.
fighting game. But yeah, sorry.
But yeah, I think the 90s, because I'm a little older than you guys, I'm not going to say how old I am, but it was like a really good renaissance for Black, especially television, because you had Martin in Living Color, Sister, Moesha, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like these shows that built up UPN and the WB until they combined and made the CW.
Oh,
Oh, what?
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think it's a really interesting that Bernard Rose changed it from Liverpool to Chicago specifically because the story, the Clive Barker story, is about class differences, right?
yes.
But it adds another layer when you change it to an urban project in Chicago and the whole the backstory of Candyman. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think his name is Bernard.
Bernard.
Rose? Yeah, I
My
was
bad.
watching a
Well, that's
documentary.
the-
You're good. It
The
looks like
British
it's
versus
spelled
American
Bernard.
organization.
Yeah,
Bernard.
Bernard.
Mr. Rose.
Are you
But
for
yeah.
real? It's Bernard. I'm sorry.
no, it is.
You're not
I was
messing.
watching
Nah,
a
be for real
documentary
right now.
documentary clips. They were saying Bernard. Yeah.
Bernard.
But he's still a white British man, just to say.
Bernard.
Who is this? Who are we talking about?
Bernard
The
Rose.
director.
The director. Okay, I was like, ooh.
I guess I should mention also there were a few Black directors that had a little bit of like sideways eyes, but they didn't necessarily. Literally, one didn't want to comment on it publicly, just in case, just for work
Really?
purposes, getting hired later. But I think overall, for the time, I think it's pretty, well handled.
I would say so, especially if
yeah.
it's by a British director. It's
Yeah.
kind of the messaging and stuff is kind of shockingly well handled.
Yeah.
There's maybe some things that could be changed a little bit, but I think I talked about there's like a direct line. We were mentioning something before the podcast about how some things were changed supposedly because people were uncomfortable with like a white actress and a Black actor.
The
Yeah. Right.
interracial relationship thing is like a really big thing in the movie.
Yes.
Oh
And
yeah.
I would have never guessed that there was any pushback because it is so like blatant and over the top. And also there's a lot of like, there's some lines that are just like overtly criticizing the police and like how they handle things in poor.
Oh
like,
yeah,
Black
where she
communities.
says like, "I just got beat up, but there's been murders and nobody kind
Yeah.
of."
How has nobody
yeah.
caught this murderer? There's
Yeah.
been literal murders and like in the news. Nobody's even come down here.
It's
apparently,
true.
I get beat up.
I
The
mean-
cops are down there immediately. They
Yeah,
find the guy.
exactly.
And it's like
They
she
go
says that
round
in
people up.
Yeah, this is like verbatim. Helen says this in the movie, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, so
Yeah.
clearly this director was aware of some of this stuff. Someone talked to
Yeah,
him.
and honestly, it's loaded imagery. There's this big Black man and a tiny blonde woman, but it's something that's been in American cinema since
Yeah.
the dawn of American cinema with Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
1915, D.W. Griffith. So it's interesting that they're playing with that in particular. I thought it was, but yeah, again, I think it's really well handled. He's like you had mentioned earlier. He's kind of a romantic figure. It's
Yeah.
a tragic
Yes.
romantic figure. That's why
Yeah.
I mentioned Gothic when I did my non-spoiler review.
Because it's
Yeah.
it's also not just like, oh, this is a Black man attacking a white woman. You get the
Right.
background of he was just an artist who fell in love and then was betrayed by society, and this is like I guess his spirit lashing out. So it's
Yeah.
not just that.
It's compelling.
Yeah, there's more to it. I feel yeah.
I have some fun facts about the bees.
Yay.
Oh, bee
I'm
facts.
so glad
Should
you're
we
talking
bring up the
about
bees
this.
now or bring it up
Uh-oh.
later?
Before we get into that,
Oh,
I
okay.
did have a final thought.
I'm like, I want to talk about the bees.
Sorry, I know it is
I
very
wasn't sure
exciting.
if I should bring up fun facts now or later.
I do want to talk about the bees,
Okay.
but go ahead.
There's so much to say.
I wanted
Hold for
to.
B facts. Hold.
I wanted to talk about how Jordan Peele was in this documentary on Shudder called Black Noir. I forget the subtitle of it. But he was talking about how it's like Candyman was a villain, but he thought it was interesting how sometimes like you want to see yourself portrayed as a villain. Sometimes you want to see yourself portrayed as a hero. It's like we should see each other portrayed as everything. So
Equality
yeah.
in a word.
Equal opportunity bees.
Yeah.
So it's like I like as a woman, it's fun to see like
Oh yeah.
killers that are female, and it's just like so I can totally see that being the case for everybody. You know?
Yeah, and then that makes a lot of sense.
B facts.
Sorry,
Bee facts.
Should I bring up the bee
time.
facts? I mean,
because
bees
when
were
they're-
real.
when they're crawling over her face.
Okay.
I was like,
Okay.
what?
insane.
Real quick.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
When I mentioned in my little my brief review, and I talked about how this movie just has so much sauce. this is something that you can't really do nowadays because CG is so easy to do.
Yeah.
They have for real bees all over their face,
Yeah.
And
in
out of
their
mouth
mouths.
and their nose, and
That's
it's crazy.
It's so sick. This movie's so cool. Sorry, go.
Like, who came up with that? That's so crazy.
yeah.
You know, the
wrangler?
bees. Well, yeah, they had a bee wrangler.
Did they really?
Yeah,
You have
because
to.
I think.
Well, it's not like you can wrangle the bees
You smoke them.
Well,
on her face.
I bet.
well, I can tell you what happened.
Okay.
They,
has the
What is
knowledge.
theorizing?
Yeah. Yo, you tell us.
I think it was Bernard Rose,
Yeah.
Mr.
Bernard.
Rose, Director Rose.
I'm so sensitive about names now.
Yeah,
'cause
I get it. I have a
missense.
funny name. I
Albus.
get
Wait,
it.
who did we mess up?
We don't need to talk about it. We don't need to keep bringing it up. Every mom has been telling me I said it
Names
wrong.
are hard. I think the director saw this guy on the Tonight Show wrangling bees.
Okay.
And that's how they hired him. And so the bees, so Tony Todd had a mouth guard so they wouldn't go down his throat.
Good.
But they were in
Jesus.
his mouth.
Yeah, they were.
So they
Sorry.
bred these bees because bees stingers aren't as bad when they're younger. So they bred them to be
Baby bees?
They were baby bees basically.
Whoa.
They were 12 years old. Or not 12 years, 12 hours.
12 years old.
How long do bees live, I
BBs?
wonder?
Probably not.
No,
that long.
not that long. They're 12 hours old.
How long do bees live? All right, we'll get to that. We'll get back to that.
Can't be more than a few days,
Wait, but
right?
don't
I
they
know.
die after they sting you?
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
so, but
I thought they live
that's not one of
longer.
the facts I know.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I think
That's
you're
not
right.
the bee facts. Why don't you relax, Sam?
I'm pretty sure I've always heard that too. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
oh, I thought you were saying 20 days.
20 days?
That's longer than
They
I
really
thought.
are baby bees.
That's longer
I
than I
thought
thought.
they lived a long
Virginia
life.
What
Madsen said
percentage of someone's lifespan is 12 hours
Oh.
to 20 days?
you got to do the proportions.
I think
don't
that
know.
would make you like 5.
Sure.
Let's go with that.
Yeah,
And we're
got
just
it.
gonna
Just
lock
pulling
it
that
in.
for
Yeah.
nothing, but yeah, that's
Yeah, someone do the
These are
math.
5-year-old bees.
So Virginia Madsen is allergic to bees. By the way,
What?
they had an
Oh.
ambulance on standby
What?
on the
That's
bee days.
crazy dedication.
But she said that the director Rose was able to convince her because she was like, "Oh, I get to do work with these bees all over my face, get burned a lot." Like it was a challenge. It was exciting for her. So, but she said that the Wrangler guy had them in a jar, and he was like over her and like smacked the end of the jar, and they would just land on your face. They put pheromone dots of the queen bee, and then once they spread out, it was fine. They felt like little Q-tips.
So did they sting her?
She didn't say in this interview, so I don't
I feel
know
like
for
that would
sure.
have been a
But I
story.
think Tony did get stung
Yeah.
because he negotiated with his lawyer that every time he got stung, he got a bonus of like $1,000.
Nice.
No, take notes.
Yeah.
Everyone take notes on
Advocate
that.
for yourself. Get
That's
a lawyer.
crazy.
He said he had a good lawyer.
yeah. She didn't get stung, I believe,
Yeah,
but he did.
but
Good thing.
they were all real bees, and it was 200,000 real bees. That's what the number they're saying that I saw, specifically bred for it.
baby bees.
Baby bees. they were
That's so
cute.
sweet.
That's nuts.
Yeah, the bees in the toilet were real. When she went
yeah.
into that bathroom. But yeah, he had them in his mouth for real.
Yeah. Listen, I'm all for actor safety and everything. I understand why you can't do that kind of stuff anymore. But man,
It's
is it
pretty
cool.
cool.
It's so cool
It
to
looks
see.
so much better
It
than
makes
the
it
2021 version.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just insane. I mean, you watch it and you really cringe because
you-
it's like,
you feel like, oh,
yeah.
And
You're
that
like,
shot
no.
going into like the bees at the very beginning where they're just covering the full
Yeah.
screen, you just feel it.
There's like a biological reaction to that. I think,
Yeah.
as a human, seeing all that
It's
many
true.
bees.
the whole like intro is so cool. It's like the shot of the bee, and then we get like this big wide like landscape shot of
Of the
Chicago
bees.
with this big like swarm of like
Oh,
what are
they, like,
supposed-
yeah.
it's looks like probably birds from that distance, but
Yeah.
the
Sure.
implication is that it is bees just like swarming around these skyscrapers. And
Yeah.
it's really cool. It's so sick. This movie is
I have to
dope.
mention one more thing before I forget. Virginia Madsen was hypnotized. They went to hypnotist before the movie for those scenes where she's like really intensely,
Yeah.
being hypnotized by a Candyman.
Yeah,
So a lot of those scenes you'll see she's not blinking and her eyes kind of get red
because she's
because she's actually hypnotized.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I didn't include it at first because I couldn't really verify it from her, and I wanted it to know it from her. But she did say in the little special featurette But then after a while, she was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So they stopped doing it.
Oh,
She got a
jeez.
little uncomfortable with it because
Yeah.
she didn't remember the whole day
Oh my
of
God.
filming. So
Yeah.
they stopped doing that.
That's scary.
I know,
That'd be
isn't
so
it scary?
Wish I
I-
could do that at my job. Ayo, I'm kidding. Love my job.
But really,
fired after
wouldn't it be great to be hypnotized for like all the worst parts of just regular
That's crazy.
living?
Honestly, yeah.
Just kidding.
I'll go up there. Or
Doing the
hypnotist.
dishes. Can't remember it.
That's crazy. It's. I mean, she does. It looks really real.
It does. I guess that means I understand why it's such a cool performance because I guess she was literally hypnotized during those scenes.
Yeah.
But like they changed like the lighting gets like really intense and like saturated. There's like a lot of like
Oh,
red
they do that
and like
spotlighting
yes,
too on her
yeah.
eyes.
on her eyes and like it's really cool. Just watch this movie if you haven't seen it, please. It's
It's
so
very stylish
yes.
and yeah.
and every one of the sequels I feel like does not hit that level of like
No.
style and like visual like it's so distinct. It's so cool. I don't know. This, like I said, this is the first horror movie I think I've watched, including The Shining, which I know probably people were probably upset about or would be upset
Hot
about.
take.
Where I've like The Shining looks great a lot of the time, but I don't know. Something about this movie really like struck me in a different way than the
Michael
rest
loves
of
this one.
I
Yeah.
did.
Well,
I thought it was great.
You know that it's interesting because it's a lot of horror movies aren't urban. Like I don't mean to
Yeah.
say black, but like in a city.
Yeah, yeah.
They're usually like in some cabin in the
suburb,
woods or
too.
suburb. So it's really interesting when a horror movie's in a city landscape. I think.
It feels like everything is so like purposeful all
Yeah.
the time. Everything is like intentional. How grimy everything feels like.
Really real.
Yeah, you're like in there the whole time. It feels very immersive.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. And they like dedicate. There's a scene that's like, I think it's after Helen is arrested when the dog is decapitated. There's a scene where the police like arrest her and take her in, and she has to like strip down, and she's just like covered in blood and naked, and they keep like asking her to like check under her breast for like weapons and stuff, and she just like, can I take a shower? Can I please? It's like so grimy and
visceral,
gross and
yeah.
weird, and like, and it's like, oh, you feel so bad. I don't know. There's so much about this movie that feels so like tactile that I don't get
Yeah.
from like a lot of, especially modern horror, but even some of the older ones. I don't know. Something very visceral about it.
The woman who played the cop is her friend that she recommended for the role just so it would be more comfortable because, you know,
Yeah.
imagine that scene.
Yeah.
So that was
That's
a woman
that
she
was a
knew
good
really
idea.
well.
That's yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
That's mainly my stuff.
Okay.
What do you
Awesome.
guys think of the score? I'm really curious.
I
Isn't
didn't
it?
talk about the
Yes.
Isn't
score.
it good? Like it's Philip Glass.
Oh,
He's an
theme
Oscar winner
song?
also.
Dude,
So good.
Didn't he also do the 2021, or at least the theme? I guess they reused.
They
the
used
theme.
it. Yeah, they reused it at the end of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they used it
Maybe
throughout.
not throughout.
no,
Yeah.
the score is incredible.
I should have looked that up. That was on me.
No, that's okay. It's really. I thought it was so interesting because it's like it's got the choral
Yeah.
choir
I think that's right.
voices.
Yeah.
It's like I said, gothic. I wish I could think of another word, but it's like
Yeah.
it's got that modern vibe, being in a city, but also gothic. And then the melody is almost like childlike, like because it's about a story, so it's like a fairy tale almost.
Ooh, I like that description of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like I said,
I
everything
enjoyed
about
it.
this movie feels intentional. It's everything works together so well. I didn't even mention the score. Thank you, but yeah, it's everything meshes together in such a fun way. I love it so much. Great movie.
Great.
What'd you think? Okay, I have another question. What'd you think about his coat?
The drippiest coat I've
Yeah.
ever seen.
So good,
So
and they get
sick.
rid of it in the
They get
sequels,
ri-
and it pisses me
Yeah.
off.
The 90s sequels, he doesn't have that
Really?
coat anymore.
I don't remember.
They give him
Okay.
like
It's like a
more,
black
yeah.
leather.
Gotcha.
coat.
Which is also cool, but like the fur, like tanned leather, like coat that he has that just drapes. It's like a Batman cartoon cowl, where it just like covers him entirely. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Probably that was a weird reference.
I got it.
Yeah. But it just like fully envelops him, and also I love a little detail that like seemingly randomly, sometimes when he's talking to Helen, his mouth won't be moving, but sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
It
Really
works.
cool. It's so sick
It
that
makes
like
so much sense.
makes them feel so like otherworldly, and all those scenes feel so like dreamlike almost whenever they're communicating.
And
Especially
they
the scene
take that
in,
out in the sequels.
Yeah, they do.
Again.
Yes, there's no sauce in the
Everything
sequels.
cool about him they take out of the sequels. So great.
It also feels like we're getting off topic. We're gonna talk about the 90s sequels real quick. It seems like they forgot how to do his voice correctly. His voice, like the way they do like the echo and the reverb on it, is like different in the sequels. It doesn't feel as like
Do
booming.
you know the budget on both of those?
I don't.
I
know.
don't,
Maybe
but I
check
could
it
look
out.
that up
Yeah.
before next
Or if
episode.
it was the same crew?
Well, you couldn't even get the audio
Definitely
on
not
his
the
voice,
same
right?
crew.
I don't know.
Heck no.
But yeah, he's so interesting. Especially, we mentioned it a little bit, the psych ward scene where he's like floating.
Oh yeah,
Above
we do need
her,
to talk about that.
Yeah, it's
How do you accomplish that?
I
I don't know how you accomplish that practically.
Yeah, especially because the angle that we get, you
Yeah.
can't really see where they would put wires.
well, because
Exactly.
Yeah.
do they have? I don't think it is wire.
Is he
'Cause
like
it's,
You don't
risen
think so?
up?
I think
You
because
see
like a
it's his
platform?
coat.
most of his body.
Yeah.
His coat is over him, right? And
Yeah.
it's like floating below him. My guess is they had like a little plank that he's
Oh.
laying on,
Maybe,
but
yeah.
the coat is over that. It's like laying
That
underneath
makes
the
sense.
coat, and he's probably
It's a
like
cool
being-
shot.
Yeah,
That's a really good idea. I think you're probably right because my whole thing is I'm like, how do they do? There's no way his feet are supporting him like that. Like,
Yes.
how are they doing that?
To
Yeah.
describe the shot, Helen's like laying strapped down in a bed, and he is. Oh, I moved away from the mic, and he's like floating face to face above her, and like slowly like comes down and then like flies away
Mm-hmm.
when the like doctors come. It's so cool. It's really sick as hell. But yeah, to describe get back to the coat. Great choice. Great choice. They lost it. They lost the sauce for everything else. Love his design. It's fucking awesome. Is that it
What
for the
else? What
research?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Oh,
okay, great.
sweet.
I mean,
That was really detailed. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
You did a really good job. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
I like the B facts.
B-facts.
Fact.
Alrighty, it's time for the book versus movie segment. Are y'all ready for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as we mentioned in the film, Helen has a friend named Bernadette. She's helping her with her thesis that's on urban legends. That's their focus. In the story, though, in the short story, Helen is working on her own. She's specifically focusing on graffiti art, so not urban legends.
The graffiti is like incidental in the movie. It's
Yes.
kind of secondary. It's just a thing she stumbles upon. She's not there
Exactly.
for the graffiti, but the story she's explicitly there.
Yeah,
Trying to
I
find
wanted
art.
to mention that because in the film it kind of is more of like a backdrop. It makes you feel like it's an actual place where people have lived in, but in the short story it's more of a focal point.
Yeah.
Bernadette is not in the story at all, and I kind of liked her introduction, or like the fact that she's in the movie. I feel like if Helen was just by herself, it probably would have been a little bit more boring. But Bernadette gave her someone to like talk to and work with. So
Yeah, bounce her ideas off of.
yeah,
And
yeah.
to somebody to comment on how crazy she's being for being in in
Yeah.
Capri
Yeah.
Green, going
the
through
voice
the holes.
of reason.
Yeah. As Michael kind of dove into, the short story is set at this place called Spectre Street. And then, of course, in the film, it's called Cabrini Green. But yeah, she learns about Cabrini Green and the urban legend of the Candyman through people at her university, and that leads her to investigate the neighborhood. Meanwhile, in the short story, she's going there because there's a lot of cool graffiti, and she wants to take photos of it.
Yeah, in the movie, she's there for Candyman.
Yes.
In the short story,
She stumbles upon him.
Candyman shows up like in the last act, in the climax.
Yes.
I don't think Candyman's ever mentioned until he says his name, I think, right?
All right.
Yeah.
There's no like say his name 5 times in the mirror. None of that stuff's in the short
No.
story. She's just there for the graffiti and the murders that apparently nobody's heard about. And then Candyman shows
Yeah.
up and is like, I'm Candyman.
Yes. And speaking of Candyman, he does look different in the
Yeah.
short story. He's described as having waxy yellow skin, pale blue lips, and ruby red eyes.
Mhm.
So cool visual. If you look at the thumbnail, you'll see what he's supposed to look like.
Yeah,
And
the
he's kind
little,
of a
like, artwork.
scraggly man.
he's a little goblin guy.
He is. He's a goblin. Anne Marie is a character in both. She in the short story, she is kind of a off-putting figure. She points Helen to the house where Candyman is, maybe to sacrifice Helen potentially.
Yeah. The room where his like shrine is in the community or whatever. Because that's
Yeah.
what the big mural is.
I have questions about the short story,
Sure.
Okay.
but wait till I get to the end. I think it's more the end.
Okay, yeah. But in the film, she's living in the apartment that Helen is looking around in, investigating in. In the film, Anne Marie is there to tell Helen about the death of the woman. What was her name?
Ruthie Jean.
Ruthie
right?
Jean. Yeah, she talks about it a little bit. Her kid is named Kenny. Her baby is named Kenny in the short story. Meanwhile, in the film, his name is Anthony, which is important for the 2021
It's
version.
Kenny?
Kenny,
I thought
yeah.
it was Carrie.
Was it Carrie? Oh, it's Carrie sounds right.
Somebody fact check this. in
I'm
the
pretty sure it was
comments.
Carrie because I remember every time they
Well, I
say
heard it and
his
didn't
name,
see
I
it.
kept thinking it was a little girl, but it's a boy.
I thought the same thing.
Oh, okay.
That sounds more right.
I think it's baby Carrie.
Baby Carrie.
I forgot his name up until
Maybe
you
it
just
is.
said.
Well, now I'm rethinking. What do you find?
But then again,
nothing's popping up. AI Google help.
it might be Kenny or Carrie. I know. I tried to look up character names for my synopsis. There's none. Nobody apparently cares about the short story.
Yeah, the short story was hard to research.
Yeah, it was very hard.
It's not popping up.
I want to
for
say it might be
me.
Carrie, but maybe my audiobook narrator just really bungled the name on this one. Can I, real quick?
Who did the audiobook?
I don't
Anybody?
know.
Oh,
her
yeah,
name.
chat
did
about
you,
the
did you do it
audiobook.
on Audible?
Okay, funny story. No,
Okay.
I did it on YouTube.
You did it on YouTube?
It was a woman who has a podcast. I guess.
She
same-
just read the.
Yeah, she just read it.
I almost listened to that one.
It was interesting because she had a distinct like northern, like it sounded like a New York accent, which is kind of funny because the story's in English.
Okay.
And she's saying bloody and
Yeah,
stuff like that. I was
yes.
like, this is so funny.
So the funny thing about the version I listened to on Audible, it is supposed to be set in England, but unlike yours, the person doing the narration for mine decided that for like the characters who clearly have like a very like Cockney, like more I guess lower class, I don't know,
Yeah.
British accent, she did a like Southern accent. So all the characters are talking like with a Southern twang, and it's like we're in Britain. What are you
That's so
doing?
funny.
It was like so like it took me out of it a lot of the time. When she would do Anne Marie, she'd have like a Southern twang, and I was like, this doesn't seem right. This is weird. It's supposed to be.
They always do Southern for poor. It's so funny.
Yes, but that's my gripe with the audiobook. There was
That's
no attempt
hilarious.
to do a British or cast a British narrator.
Cast a British narrator. At
do
least.
something.
There's
but
plenty of them out
they-
there.
No
I'm
kidding.
sure there are a ton. But yeah, not only did they not even try, they did Southern accents for the characters, and I was like, this is weird. And it took me out. Sorry, audiobook tangent. After the name debacle.
Yeah, I couldn't find.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah,
I just tried.
Nothing was popping
Nothing.
up. So
I looked up the forbidden baby name, and then a bunch of like names were popping up that were like, no, I know. It's like all these weird names with like exclamation marks in them. And I was, like, what's Elon Musk's
Elon
baby name?
Musk's
Like,
yeah. What is it? It's like Zod,
I don't even know
Exord or something.
how do you say it.
yeah, but yeah, so that's what came up. So nothing.
404
Cool.
forbidden.
cool. Yeah, so it's either Kenny or Carrie. We're killing it this episode.
Wish I had the book.
So while the film takes place in these apartment buildings, the short story takes place in these maisonettes, which are still apartments kind of, but they're not, it's not like, the stacked typical like American apartments that you think of. So the setting is quite different in that regard. I want to get into the setting a little bit later, but did you guys have any preference for like apartment building versus masonette, like where Candyman dwelled or where, the crazy stuff happened? Like, were you interested in either one?
I mean, to me, okay, diving into this question, but kind of going off to the left.
It was a weird question. So.
No, it's okay. Well, it's like I'm sort of gonna answer it, but for me personally, reading the short story, like I could tell obviously Candyman is meant to be, and maybe this is just me, maybe I'm stupid, but I was like, okay, I can tell Candyman is supposed to be a metaphor for something. Is that fear? Like, his legacy is communicated verbally, so is it about that? Or is it about, which actually, your story about Clive Barker and the grandma thing kind of leads into that.
Right.
Or is it more about, because he has this whole thing about like, be my victim, like you'll die in glory basically because you'll be remembered forever. Or like what, but it's not because he doesn't have a backstory. It's not very clear. So by moving the setting to me and making deliberate choices, I thought they hammered out that metaphor a lot more literally, and it was communicated to me a lot more effectively in the movie. And I thought that was a strong choice to move the setting. That was the root of your question, right? About changing it from the Masonettes to him kind of being summoned there versus the fact that he lives in the projects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my biggest takeaway in terms of moving the stories. As we already talked about in the research section, it seemed a lot more glued into one idea as opposed to this amorphous thing that gets summoned anywhere in Spectre Street. I thought it was an effective choice for what the movie was trying to communicate.
Yeah,
No.
Sorry, no, I was
taking it in, taking it
thinking
in.
about it.
I'm literally thinking about what you just said, and I'm trying to like
Because I
figure
was
out.
like, why does he just randomly pop up?
You know what I mean?
I guess because we kind of
Okay, well
think
that
she's.
leads to my question that I
Yeah.
had. Is this a cult?
I feel
So,
like that's the case.
I was listening to. I was like,
But if it's a cult, then why do they tell her anything?
yeah,
So
that's true.
here's what I'm thinking. I thought about this a lot because it is very strange. This is something that threw me off as I was listening to the short story
Yeah.
because for the first times in this podcast history, I watched the movie before I listened to the original source material.
Jump scare.
Yeah. So in the movie, the Cabrini Green does not fuck with Candyman. He's scary. He's a thing. He's a story they tell to like essentially warn, like, you know, protect yourself from yada yada. Maybe it's like a metaphor for just like trying to keep yourself safe from the dangers of the local area. I think they even talk about that might be why the Candyman exists. Helen and Bernadette. But it's like a story they tell. In the short story, they like Candyman 1 is never mentioned, and it seems like, at least from Helen's estimation, that the people who live in those masonettes are like worshiping him, or like they sacrifice things to him willingly. That's the conclusion that Helen comes to. But the way that the short story treats like everyone, like the higher society's opinion of that area, I couldn't tell if that's like what's the word I'm looking for? Something, the unreliable narrator type thing,
right.
where it's like, is Helen right?
That's an interesting
Is she
point.
correct that this is a cult and that they are worshiping him? Because we don't get like this is just something that Helen concludes.
Yeah.
And then her plan is to go get the baby's corpse and bring it to the police as evidence. It's like a crazy plan.
Yeah.
And it seems like Helen might not be in her right mind at that point. So I'm not sure.
I like that.
I can't,
that it's up for interpretation almost.
because the whole setup is that Helen stumbles upon these stories and then nobody in her friend circle believes her, and she's
They
even
could
like,
be totally fucking with her, telling her these stories.
Yes,
Just
that they could be fucking with me, that none of these murders might have happened, and then that's her like journey for the rest of the short story, is like trying to figure out if these murders are real or if they've been lying to her, and then she
I like
comes
that.
to the conclusion at the end, they must have been lying to me and they've been playing me this whole time. Really? Why? To kill you?
Yeah.
I guess.
It's almost like Wicker Man.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean?
Well, unless it is a cult,
yeah, yes.
and she's there
To be
almost
a-
as
To be their
yes,
sacrifice.
almost as a
Sacrifice.
form of destiny, and they know it's almost like not a Christ figure thing,
Yeah.
but like a chosen one thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that would make that
an
work.
just had to
outsider
know
they're
she would come
using.
back.
Right, and
know.
they know that she's coming, and then that is why they tell her those stories because sucks for Anne Marie though.
Well, I mean, to me, it seemed like she let her baby get killed. She doesn't seem that like phased by
No,
her
she's
baby
all-
dying.
no, she's all
weird about it.
Yeah,
she's all
kinda
like, "Get out of my
chill.
house."
We
but
get
like her baby's in the
descriptions
back.
of Anne Marie like not explicitly being like not that sad about her baby dying, like not torn up about it.
Right.
Where in the movie she
I feel like
is.
it was Kenny. I think it
Who
was.
killed
I-
Kenny?
Unless,
I
listen,
think it was.
unless my audiobook reader was
But
just
Harry seems like such
just
a British weird
fully
name.
bungled
does,
the
but-
pronunciation
but
of Kenny.
Kenny
I'm
works
pretty sure it's
too,
Carrie.
though. Kenny works.
Kenny,
you
like-
know.
Thinking about it, I 1000% remember her saying Carrie over
Okay,
and over again.
who votes Kenny?
I'm
I
not
think-
confident in either direction on this.
Well, I'll vote Carrie, even though I did write
You're
Kenny.
all voting Carrie?
I mean,
Okay,
I'm,
I'm voting
I voted
Kenny
Kenny.
the contrarian.
I mean, I'm correct.
Kenny.
Kenny.
Okay, so
Kenny.
half
We're
of
all
us
gonna be
think
wrong.
Carrie, even though I did write Kenny. So we did not figure out what his name was, but
No.
the name,
I'm still trying.
at the end of the day, the name is different from Anthony.
Yeah, if you need to know one thing, it is not Anthony.
So there is a dinner table scene in both the film and the short story where Helen is hanging out with Trevor's friends. Trevor is also a professor. Their relationship is a bit shady. There's an age gap. He's cheating around on her. And in the short story... Oh. Carrie.
Carrie?
His name is Carrie.
Let's go.
Wow.
Why did I write Kenny?
How did you find it?
A false idea was planted in my mind and I rolled with it.
Candyman forbidden Anne Marie's baby, not Anthony. And then it says Carrie, but it's Kerry.
Oh, it's a K. Because I remember
Oh,
K.
that's why
I
you
was
were
like, I
thinking
think it's
Kenny.
K.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
Kinda-
god. I'm
Yeah.
glad we figured that out. Thanks, thanks, person who is.
She already said.
Yeah, I already. Yeah, wait, was I not supposed to do that? I fully.
No, I've already.
Oh, it's good.
I've already.
It's
would have been
gone.
Thanks, person who sets up cameras and lights.
Disembodied voice.
Okay. Like I was saying, in the short story, Helen knows that Trevor is like cheating on her, but she's like kind of bitter. Like she doesn't really care. She's kind of numb to it.
Have you seen the thing about Stanley Tucci's like recipe book? And he's talking about.
What?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
And that's exactly how I felt reading The Forbidden.
It's so
What?
It's a pop culture
funny.
reference.
Wait,
Only a
what?
few,
I
select
need to
few of you will
know.
understand.
Yeah,
Stanley
what's the
Tucci has like a
context?
recipe book, and in some of the recipes,
He'll
he'll
mention like his wife.
yeah,
not
he's
being
like,
there.
he's just like, yeah, I'm currently making this dish for my wife, who comes home a bit later than she should, or something. It's just
Yeah,
like very
but, like,
passively aggressively. He
sprinkled
clearly,
in.
yeah,
What?
just randomly like in the middle of the
Oh my
description.
god! I need to buy this
Weird.
cookbook.
Yeah,
And it's about the same as how they do that in The Forbidden. It's about like,
Yeah.
and Trevor didn't really care, but Trevor never really did. You know what I mean? It's like very
Yeah.
like flitty the
Yeah.
way they describe him not caring about the relationship, similar to Stanley Tucci's cookbook.
yeah. She has like a thought at some point where she's like, "Oh, Trevor's waiting for me to comment about how he was late again today, but I don't care right
didn't
now."
have- she
Right?
didn't-
Yeah.
Yeah, she couldn't put up the
Yeah.
effort for it.
She and
He's
Trevor.
waiting
That's a
for
good
me to ask
Way
why.
to
Yeah.
word it. She did not
Right.
want to put up the effort.
No, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
Make the effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a little different from the movie because Helen seems to
She's
genuinely
really she clocks that girl right away.
Yeah,
in the
that's the
classroom.
first thing she brings up to Trevor, even
and she
before the
mentions
lecture.
it. And she's not even not trying to bring it up. She brings it up fully.
Yeah.
She's like, "Are you cheating on me with that student?" And he's like, "No."
Probably
I would
because she's a
never.
grad student and he's a professor, so they definitely got
Honestly,
together when she was a student.
Yes,
Great point,
Yeah.
Sibia.
Yeah.
definitely.
She knows his MO.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she does
Yeah.
seem to at least actually care about
Yeah,
the
she does,
relationship
and she
in the
tries
movie.
to put some effort into it. She,
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are fully married.
Also, that guy,
Oh yeah.
he's
I thought they were married.
they are
They
married.
Are. Yeah, they're
Oh.
fully married.
That
As opposed to half
actor,
married.
Xander Berkeley, was in The Walking Dead playing a similarly annoying, skeezy character.
Really?
He's just so good at
Skinny
it.
typecast.
Yeah,
With the Trevor from the movies in The Walking Dead.
yeah. Towards the
Trevor.
end, like in the post Rick era.
Oh,
I
right.
watched
I never
every
got
single
there.
episode. I'm a stan, so like if
We
you
need
have
to get you
questions
on
about
for
it,
The Walking Dead.
I'll do it.
episodes.
Oh my god.
We have to watch the whole show.
No. Until the comics
This is
stop.
a Walking Dead, like a company podcast. We just do every episode, one of our episodes.
Sucks.
That would take so long. There's like 11 seasons or something.
Yeah.
Plus all the spin-offs. I only watched the spin-offs that
Let
had
us know in the
original
comments if you
characters,
want
though.
us to do a company podcast, The Walking Dead.
I would hate that. You guys have fun though.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, so yeah, so she's in both versions. She's at dinner with Trevor's friends. An interesting thing about Trevor is that I liked this comment in the short story about how he basically would always take an opposing view of her no matter what.
Oh,
And I'm like,
yeah.
that perfectly encapsulates like his vibe. Like
you
he
loudly
in the
hate-
short story, like
yeah.
he pisses me off. He's
Yeah.
always just wanting to butt heads. We hate Trevor on this podcast.
We just do a printout of Trevor with the eyes X'd out. Yeah.
That should have been our prop today. Yeah. But Purcell is in both versions, and he
Yeah.
knows about Candyman in the film.
Candyman.
But at this point in the short story, she doesn't know about the urban legend yet. She's basically just telling them like, these are the weird stories I heard in this poor folk town. And then
You're doing the country accent.
I know
You're
I didn't
doing
do it.
Explain.
I don't know. There's no Southern people in it.
It's also British.
Explicitly
It
in
is.
Chicago.
In this poor
Oh, in
folk
Chicago,
town,
yeah.
these poor folks.
Yeah. They're probably lying to you, dude.
His
I'll
British
bet
accent is
dinner on
great.
it.
No, literally.
Right, I'll pay for dinner if these stories are true.
Really good accent.
It was pretty wild how that guy was being such a dick to her when he was telling her the story. It's like,
Yeah.
I already wrote this paper.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Been there, done that.
Also,
Yeah.
I did this because she's literally smoking in every single scene. Even in the prison, she's got a cigarette.
Oh, yeah, true. Oh, yeah, that's the difference between their conflict, I guess, in the movie and the short story. In the short story, he just says she's lying, but in the movie, he's like, I already wrote about this.
Yeah.
I wrote
Right.
about the
It's
Candyman.
like
Idiot.
academic conflict. yeah.
Dummy.
Yeah,
Well,
because
she
she didn't want
we're
him
gonna
to
bury
teach.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's at this point in the film that Purcell gives the backstory of Candyman that Michael went into earlier. But as we also mentioned in the short story, there is no backstory. He is just a figure that we don't know much about. I can't remember if you talked about the little boy much in the synopsis.
I kind of
Oh,
ignored him
yeah.
in both synopses.
There is a little boy.
I
Yes.
was trying to keep the synopses short, and like in both stories, he's like kind of relevant,
Yeah.
but not enough for me to mention
In my
him
notes when I was
either.
watching the movie, I was like, not Helen manipulating this child into being her tour guide
Candyman
Yeah.
through
isn't
the
real,
project.
dummy.
Also, like, asking a child about a murder that happened is just
Yeah,
pretty wild. Like,
yeah.
do you know about this murder, child?
It is very exploitative on Helen's part.
Yeah.
It's like you just see anybody who lives here and start asking them questions.
No kidding.
She
But
does that
especially a
both, yeah.
child just sitting there by himself.
Right.
Like,
Well,
let's
in
talk about this murder that happened here.
Yeah.
In the story, he approaches her, I think.
Yes. So basically, in the short story, he doesn't have a name. In the film, his name is Jake. But in the short story, he's kind of just waiting around for her and being like, hey, Anne Marie wants to have tea with you. He's kind of creepy. I don't know how
Yeah.
he knows Anne Marie, but I kind of liked him in the short story because he's just like there and just a creepy kid trope.
Yeah, they never really explain him. He's not Anne Marie's kid.
No.
In my brain, he was.
I thought so at first.
Like, it never says that, but in my
Probably just, like,
headcanon,
Infer.
yeah. In my
Okay.
headcanon, I was like, that's that's Anne Marie's older son that she never mentioned, or that's the ghost of Anne Marie's older son that she never
Maybe.
mentioned.
Oh, yeah?
Ghost child.
That's my
Ghost
headcanon.
child.
Because
Yeah.
Helen is like
Yeah.
having tea with Anne Marie, and he's not there.
No.
Right. He doesn't come back with her.
No,
He just hangs out outside.
he just hangs out by himself outside somewhere.
I feel like that makes sense for the setting though.
It's
Like,
a
Yeah.
I
great
totally
little-
can
yeah.
envision
True.
this
It works.
kid that like
Little
looks
latchkey
way
kid.
older than he actually
Yeah.
is. Like that's how I envisioned him anyway.
Yeah.
But in the short story, this little boy tells Helen about the guy that was murdered in the bathroom. So he gives her a little. Oh wait, no,
That's
wait.
the two old ladies.
That is
Yeah,
the
there's-
two old ladies. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So Jake,
It has
in the
been a minute for
film,
you.
It has been.
Look at you.
Okay, so Jake in the film tells Helen that this guy was murdered in a bathroom. Meanwhile, in the short story, she learns this story. She learns about this guy that was murdered from these two old ladies at near a grocery store.
They're chatting about they're talking the tea, and then Helen comes up to him and is like, "Hey, ladies," and they're like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Literally, they're like, "Get away!" And then she starts me summarizing this story. She's like, "Can you tell me about the? She's like, "Can you tell me about the old man who got killed?" They're like,
Yes.
"Who?"
Yeah.
They've never heard of this story that Anne Marie said that happened like a month ago.
We have another story for you.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Boy,
okay,
we got
I've never heard
another
of
one.
anything. They're like, I think that happened in the town over, but listen, sit down. And then they tell her the horrible bathroom story.
Which, by the way, when it's shot in the movie, I was like, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
When they
I thought
pan
they were
through-
gonna show stuff.
I know when they pan through it, I felt really disturbed by
Sick.
that
Yeah.
part. That really got
that was
me.
a disgusting.
It's a very,
bathroom.
overall, I just have to, interjection here, very effective movie. I know
Yeah.
we've already like
Yeah,
glazed
gas
this
it up.
movie
We're
enough.
glazing
Yeah.
it like crazy.
But-
I'll keep glazing it.
But just effective. I can't remember the last horror movie where I actually was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Nasty.
For our listeners
Yeah.
who don't watch the video, I just cringed physically. That's all.
Because there's like when they go into when Helen goes into the bathroom in the movie, there's like shit, just literal shit smeared like
Yeah.
on the walls. There's like something in writing. Is there
It's,
something
it's
written?
what I picture
Sweets
for
to the
every
sweet.
men's
Oh, is that
room.
written in
Yeah.
doo doo? Is that written
Sweets
in
to the
dookie
Yes.
on the bathroom stall? And then there's like a shot of the bees like in the toilet when she opens it,
Yeah.
and there's just like a full human turd also in the shot, like on the
Oh,
floor.
I missed that.
Yeah, like,
I'm glad I missed that.
It's,
Yeah.
like, it's like a
It's
top-down
sickening.
shot of a toilet
But
bowl.
for real,
there's bees, and then the
This
top
is
right corner there's just shit.
this is the image I have of every men's public restroom.
Yeah.
Not kidding.
Yeah.
You're
Same.
kind of right.
The bees.
The bees included.
God. Yeah. No. The one time I had to go into a men's restroom was at a theater.
Because there's no line. There's no line.
Yeah.
They said on the door there was like anyone can use this restroom because mostly women go see musical theater, and so they opened the
Oh,
men's
that's
restroom.
theater.
And then a guy was just at a urinal. I was like, I hate this. This is awful.
You hated seeing a guy at a urinal?
I was just like, why
That's
are
my
you just
favorite.
whipping it out?
No,
like, I
yeah.
know that y'all do that, but it's still weird.
Just
Yeah,
be doing
no.
that stuff.
Or like the idea of a trough. Also,
Oh, I've
those
never
things are
seen a
weird.
trough, but I've heard.
I've heard
That's
of them.
so
Obviously, I've
Roman.
never used them.
Yeah, that's like a stadium, like
Yeah,
baseball
stadium.
stadium thing.
Yeah.
That
Ew.
I hear horror stories from baseball.
Sidebar about bathrooms.
Instead of urinals, it's just a big trough that everybody lines up
Ew,
at.
why?
Well, I think
Have you
public
seen one? Oh my! Have you ever used one?
does it splash back? I feel like the splash back would be bad.
I'm
Flashback.
sick, you guys.
Listen, small thing. I think public restrooms are scary.
Yeah.
They anytime they're in a horror movie, I'm like, no.
Oh,
'Cause,
yeah.
you know, Scream, is it the second one or the third one where Jada Pinkett gets like murdered in the bathroom, right?
No,
Or well,
it's
it
not the
starts in the
sequel.
bathroom.
Yeah.
Is it the one where at the theater?
Yeah,
The second-
they're
I think it's the
watching
second
Because
one.
then
Dad.
it was also in Scary Movie. They did this
Oh,
similar.
okay.
Anyway,
Oh.
I think probably that just messed me up for life.
There's also a bathroom killing in the new sequel to Candyman. And
Oh yeah, well,
we'll get
Oh,
there.
yeah.
that was such a
But yeah,
dumb scene.
public restrooms. Often I'll be if I'm in there alone. I'm like, okay, a little bit scared.
I've been scared of public restrooms since I think it's one of the Halloween movies where he's like going through each stall, and I'm like, so that's why I hate those public restrooms specifically when you're on a road trip.
Oh yeah.
Y'all
just
just
don't
giving
know
me a
what's
new
going
fear.
on there.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of public restrooms.
Well, now
I don't
you
know
should
what
be.
you're talking about. Michael, are you afraid of public restrooms?
Not really afraid to use them. I don't like using
Okay,
them.
see this side of the room, not afraid of public
I'm not
restrooms.
scared of them or things happening. I'm just like,
Yeah, this
Yeah.
side of the room, not scared of public restrooms.
I'm just too aware
Loud.
of things that could happen. Okay.
not scared of
I
public
guess.
restrooms.
Okay, moving on from public restrooms to public parking garages.
whoa.
Another
Oh,
scary
garages.
Scared of
thing.
that. Scared
Yeah.
of that.
Those are pretty
Write
They're
it
scary.
down.
scary.
Yeah.
You should be scared of that.
Yeah.
So Helen first encounters the Candyman in the film in a parking garage. It's a really
Good
cool,
choice.
creepy scene. The camera, I love it how it shifts from her to the Candyman at the far end of the parking garage. It's great. In the story, however, she meets him for the first time at the end of the short story, in the marionette, where there's the cool mural and all that. So when they meet is
marionette.
very
Masonette.
Masonette. Yes.
Sorry, I've been
yeah.
thinking about that since you said it, and I was just like,
No, thanks for
marionette?
clocking that. Yeah,
puppets.
the Masonette. So they meet at different points in time.
Yeet.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have a?
So loud.
Yes.
It's a
you
good
wanna
intro
interject?
too. It's a really well done intro
Oh my
of
god.
Candyman.
I
And
did
which
not expect
one?
it to be that loud.
In the movie. Sorry.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
his intro is really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I
just,
can't
like,
get
from far
over it.
away, and you can still
Yeah.
hear him perfectly clear. It's
Yeah.
great.
I will
His
say
voice.
I was surprised that it happened that early in the movie though. Like I remember checking the timestamp and being like, oh, like okay, I know what the
Get
rest of the
into
movie
it.
is gonna be like. Because I didn't think it was gonna be like that, but
It
you
do
know.
be like that.
I think it was a good
do be like
choice.
that.
Strong.
Also, his cloak is like really good for making it look like he's kind of just like floating around.
Yeah.
He does like these really
Oh.
long, like kind of slow steps as he like walks towards people. It's
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah.
They play around with him really good.
So this is when the film takes a total turn, a total shift from the short story. It deviates. There is a major twist. Candyman ends up framing Helen for the killing of
Oh yeah.
the
The dog.
the dog.
The beheading of the
And-
They
dog.
think the baby
they
might
think the
be
baby,
dead,
yeah.
so they're framing her too.
And she stabs Emery,
Oh, she does. Yeah,
Yes.
I mentioned
Arm
that
with
in
the
synopsis.
cleaver.
Yeah.
And stabs.
and it was like spurting, like Quentin
Both
Tarantino
times-
type
Yeah.
blood.
Both times she gets framed, she just is in the middle of like a horrible scene, and she just picks up a knife.
A knife.
yeah.
No, yeah.
Maybe don't. do
Well,
that.
no.
To be fair, when she had the knife the second time, it
She
was
was
because
defending
Candyman
it,
was
yes.
there.
The second
But
one
she
is
still
just-
had it in her hand, and
The
Bernadette's
first
dead.
time, I do remember when I'm like, why'd you pick up the murder weapon?
Yeah.
Dude, you're in a
Listen.
pool of blood. There's a knife there. Why are you picking it up?
Yeah.
Why are you
She
picking it up?
literally in a pool of blood, and she just like sees a knife on the floor, and she's like,
She's like,
"This
"Give
is
me that."
dangerous.
Let me take it with me. Yeah, literally.
Someone might step on this." And she just picks it up. I guess I don't know why.
I will say, like, same thing. I don't remember which episode I mentioned this on, but the idea of like thinking I feel like in so many modern movies, and this happens in the 2021 version, where we have a character like black out for a second, and then suddenly they're in like compromising situation. And then they come to and, oh, it was just a dream. I love when movies do that and it's not. And I think this was a good movie where
and it's
she
real.
blacks
Okay.
out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is going to be
I
like,
thought it was gonna. Yeah.
this is going to be a dream. This is going to be a vision. This is going to be nothing. And then it winds up being extremely consequential. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah, and Anne Marie's just
Yeah.
screaming about her baby
Right.
not being there, and you're like, "This is a dream."
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then
Yeah,
you're like, oh no, it's happening. It's happening.
And
to
at
our
that point,
character.
you don't know the baby's alive. So you're like, is the baby
Did she
dead?
kill the
And you're like,
baby?
oh my
Yeah.
god! And the crib is like covered in blood, and it's just like, oh,
It's a
Yeah.
disgusting scene.
But it's scary.
so
yeah.
gritty and like
And I feel like modern
Horrifying.
movies don't do that with the whole dream thing because where it actually is happening, you know?
It's scary in a more like existential way. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god, how did she get there? All this shit is happening, and it's real. Like, what can she
There's
Right.
do? Like,
And
it's,
there's a way
Yeah.
to interpret the movie where she did kill all these people.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
did do it.
she
Right.
kind of did do it.
There's you could look at it like it's a mental illness
Yeah.
kind of allegory. I guess
Yeah.
is that the right word? But maybe she did do it.
And I mean, literally, it is her fault. She did say his name 5 times.
True.
Very
She
true.
summoned him.
And he says, like in the parking garage, it's like, you didn't believe me. You didn't believe
Yeah.
in me. You said my name. You called me here. So I got to
Here
show
I
you what's
am.
up. Like, I got to show you how I roll. And he does.
Yeah, he does. He delivers on his promise.
Yeah.
when I think of this film, I just imagine Anne Marie's apartment and like the blood everywhere. And I think that perfectly translates from Clive Barker's writing because he gets very detailed in some of his other stuff. He's very gory. He's not afraid to shy away from like taboo things like children dying, obviously, because that leads me to my next thing. The baby dies at the end. But yeah, so Anne Marie, she in the film, she wants to find her baby, obviously. But the Anne Marie in the short story, she may or may not have sacrificed her own child.
She's like, don't talk about the baby.
Like
What
we kind of
baby?
mentioned, but yeah, so that's how the film and the short story deviate. Is this whole like plot where Helen is in an asylum for a little bit or like a mental institution, and everyone thinks she is a murderer.
They had to fill out the movie with something more. And I think that direction is really effective for like, you do genuinely feel like power. You feel like dread for Helen because it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, there's literally nothing. Like, there's no way you can get out of that situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Invisible Man, the new Invisible Man movie.
That's
Except
a good point.
it
yeah.
like feels more ominous. It feels less silly. The Invisible Man kind of feels silly because it is just a guy in an invisible suit. And it is
Right,
like-
it is a guy.
and sometimes he does shit that's
Yeah.
like way too superhuman, and you're like, what? How did he do that? How did he throw a guy around? But like this one, I feel like it's a little more effective because it is this
Yeah.
supernatural like force, like just fucking up your life because you said his name 5 times, and it generally feels like helpless.
Yeah. There is that scene where she's talking to the therapist, which I think
scene.
in the TV versions was very edited because it's very gory.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
Candyman
it was
like
sick.
like puts the hook in his chest and like pulls up, right? It's really cool. It shows how effective the hook is, and he
Right.
uses that a lot in the sequels.
Yeah.
And then like he does this cool thing where he goes backwards to the window.
Yeah.
He is just so
Insane.
He
badass.
like Batman's out the window.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I forgot that happens.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Oh my god. Yeah.
Dude,
So-
it feels like, I'm sorry, total tangent. Do you remember the first Harry Potter movie where they're in the forest and like the guy
Oh,
with the
yes,
cloak
the
does-
Voldemort.
Yes.
And yes.
If you know what I'm talking about, it's like that. He just like flies away. He like flies away in a cloak. It's similar to that.
Yeah. Everything that happens in the institution is really cool in this movie. I like we mentioned a lot. Like him floating over her is such a cool visual, and I wish they did more of that in the sequels, but they
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, we're getting near the end. She gets these. I think we established she gets these visions of where Anthony is being kept. Candyman is keeping him
Yeah.
in the apartments. He's like keeping him
like in the
alive.
room. In the room.
Except it's not. It's like
like
upstairs.
above.
Yeah,
Like-
yes.
There's this crazy shot where I wrote down like how did they do this? Where the baby is in the frame and the bloody hook is like over him and I'm like, how is that allowed?
Oh,
Like how did hello?
Oh, like he's like holding him or something, or what do you mean?
no, it's like I don't know what he's doing with him. I think he's like feeding him.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
He's like giving him like
Honey.
honey. He's giving him honey.
Yes.
From
Yeah.
his finger, and he's like feeding the
And
baby.
I was like,
forgot.
how is this allowed? Like, I get that it's the 90s, but I still feel like it's like recent enough that this is a baby.
Yeah, it
and then
is.
you see the baby.
That's a real
It's
baby.
not a fake baby.
No.
I will say, jumping back to my question on apartments and maisonettes, I could envision Spectre Street more. Like the apartments, the layout was a bit more confusing for me.
Yes.
But with the maisonette and like the town square, where it's literally like a square, I could just envision it more clearly in my head.
I can definitely envision like the room where it happened.
Yeah.
Hamilton. Hamilton reference. I can envision like the room where everything goes down better, I guess, in the short story. Oddly enough, even though the movie is
Yeah,
visual,
very wild.
the movie gets very like kind of abstract and dreamlike whenever she goes into that area. So it's the actual like layout
Yeah, he
is a
doesn't
little
give you a good
confusing.
geography of the apartment
No.
complex.
Because there's like the main room with the big mural, and I
Yeah.
think the little shrine is also there. But then I think she climbs up into like an upstairs part.
Yeah.
And then there's more
It
paintings.
doesn't make sense for an apartment building,
It's
for
a little-
sure.
it's
It's
a
like
little-
An iCarly
an
apartment.
abandoned, yeah.
It's an
It's
iCarly
like an
apartment.
abandoned church almost.
It's crazy. Yeah, the top floor is like a weird abandoned church. There's all these like religious
Yeah.
iconography and like windows. It's like almost like a weird attic
Mm-hmm.
area for an apartment. And it's, I don't know, it's a little strange, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so in both versions, there is a bonfire. We already talked about this a bit, but Helen goes to rescue the baby that Candyman put in the bonfire. That's specifically for the movie. Sorry, it's confusing. In the short story, Anne-Marie puts the baby corpse in the bonfire, but in the movie, the baby's still alive, and Candyman puts the baby in the bonfire. Baby in the bonfire. In the bonfire in the film seemed bigger than I was envisioning.
Yeah, it
from
was
the
massive.
short story.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was gonna be a big bonfire in the story, but to me it was slightly larger.
Well, because I think like children are putting this bonfire together. Like, how big could it possibly
that's true.
be?
In the short story, it's like they pose it as like, oh, it's the kids do this in the summer, like blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they said that. I made that up.
In the movie, he says the kid says it's like the community like bonfire. He says it's just like a thing they do.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
whole Carini Green just does this.
Yeah.
I don't know if
like,
that's what they also
why?
say in the short story. If-
It doesn't make like, why would the community get together to do that? Why would you burn your stuff? For kids, it makes sense that you're like stealing people's stuff and burning it, but like, I don't know why is that like a thing?
And it's like a lot. It's a lot of furniture. How'd you get all that?
Exactly. I'm like, why are you burning all this stuff?
It's
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah.
Unless it's like trash.
I
Um,
assume that's what it is, but like, where are you getting all
in
that?
the
Yeah.
short story, I thought it was trash.
You think
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah, because the city's not
Yeah,
maintaining
exactly.
oh, is that?
That's
Right.
because that's the other thing. In the short story, they keep like one of the reasons they keep asking her like, "Oh, are you like a police? Are you like from the city?" Is because they're like, "Well, you need to do something. You like somebody needs
Yeah.
to do something about everything that's going on here."
Yeah.
They do their own version of that in the movie. I know we're jumping back to the beginning, but they do their own version of that in the movie with the whole like, "Oh, we look like cops. They think we're cops."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's different, you know.
That's a really good, tie-in for sure. So kids light the bonfire in the film thinking that they're killing Candyman because they see the hook. But in the story, the citizens light the fire to basically dispose of the baby's body. So the people in the town are aware that this baby corpse is in the bonfire.
Yep.
They have like a funeral thing where like the car with the baby is driving by and people are like watching. Right, it's leading to the funeral. And people are just like, it's like an event. It's not something that's actually sad for them.
Yes.
It's like an event, like, oh, we know what's actually happening. Like, they're all in on the fact that the baby corpse is gonna be used. So, yeah, that is the difference with the bonfire. Obviously, Helen dies in both, but in the film, she actually saves the baby before dying. And Anne-Marie is happy about it. The whole town is happy about it. They're glad.
They seem
that,
to understand that she's not the culprit,
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, yeah.
which I was surprised about.
they go
They go to her funeral.
They go to her funeral.
Yeah, I didn't mention that in the synopsis, but yeah, the whole like Cabrini Green
Yeah,
community,
apparently.
like a lot of them show
It's
up
funny
to
because when I
Helen's
was
funeral.
when I was taking notes about the funeral, I literally was like, nobody came to her funeral.
I
Like
know.
it's literally
Her only
Trevor
friend was killed.
and like literally like 2 other people.
And the guy that told
There's
the story.
nobody. She apparently doesn't have parents. Nobody's there. I literally was like, this is ridiculous. Why does she not have any friends? And then the entire town comes in. And I was like, delete. I was like, ooh, taking away that note. It was apparently intentional.
Yeah, and the new girlfriend was also at the
think she
funeral.
was
which
there.
Sucks.
Bizarre. I
That's
can't believe she
so
stuck
messed
around.
up. What is interesting about, and you reminded me of this the other day, is that when Helen is burning in the short story, she sees Trevor,
Yes.
and she like wants him to notice her burning so that she can haunt him. In the film, I don't think he does not show up to the bonfire, right? He's
No.
not there.
He's not
okay.
there.
So I think, yeah, in both versions, she does end up haunting him. Well, actually, I don't think he sees her burning. We don't know.
No, it's not.
He's like
it's not confirmed.
asking people like where
Yeah.
she is, but he doesn't actually see her burning.
But like her
it is a
final
cool idea.
thoughts are her final like thoughts in the short story aren't like, oh my gosh, this sucks or whatever. It's like, I hope Trevor sees me so I can fucking haunt his dreams. This dickhead. I want him to see me burning. It's like, oh
Yeah. Well, Trevor sucks.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does suck.
And I wanted to get into how Clive Barker is so good with characterization in his short story. Like the fact that this is only like 56 pages and he gives so much depth to these characters in such a short amount of time. Like you get like what their deal is. They all feel like they have personality. And so I think that just shows how good of a writer he is.
It's true.
Yeah. Those are all the differences that I could find. Could you guys think of anything else? Did we miss anything?
No, we covered the whole town thing that they're like intentions are completely different in both. That's like the biggest one for me. That was the thing that threw me off. I think I said that already. That threw me off when reading the story is because I had the movie version coloring my opinion. So I was reading the story with like the hindsight of the film being like, oh, the town doesn't like Candyman. The town, these people in the Masonettes, they don't like him. But they did in the short story. Like apparently, according to Helen, I guess they like were sacrificing to him, and that was like a big twist for me at the end because I was coming from the perspective of the movie. I had already had my like preconceived version of these people from the movie. It was way different.
Yeah, in the film, they basically use Candyman also as a figure to blame for crimes that are happening, even if he had nothing to do with it.
Just even a guy that like dresses up as him and calls himself Candyman who beats up Helen in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
He's
That
obviously
is-
a live man and in fact not the rumored
Had a hook.
Candyman.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
like takes the rumor up and
Where do you
uses
even
that.
get those hooks? I was
They have
wondering,
them.
where do you just get one of those?
Yeah, they got him.
Amazon.
Yeah. One thing that's in the movie that this isn't in the book at all because this relates to the backstory, but the whole thing about him being like, it was always you, Helen, and then they show her in the art on the wall.
Oh yeah,
Anyone care to comment on that?
Yeah.
I guess that's there's none of that shit. In the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Well, that was really interesting to me because I was just like, huh.
Yeah, because
You know?
in the story you said he was sort of romantic, but it felt a little one-sided. Like
Right.
he was,
Well, it's like he sees his former lover
didn't
in
seem-
Helen.
right.
Right. That is what
That's
that's
the
trying to
implication,
but
communicate.
she
in the
didn't
movie.
seem
Yeah.
like pulled to him the way that in the movie she was compelled.
Right.
Almost to
Well,
she was under
That's
a
a good
spell.
point. She was in, yeah, that's a good
And
point.
it's like obviously in the book there's no specific backstory, so there's no specific lover to like refer to.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie it's like he is kind of this tragic, person who lost his life and,
I did still get the implication that when she first sees the graffiti, in the short story, she is so like compelled and like almost in a trance, and I kind of like she kept wanting to come back. It was in her mind, like
Yeah.
she kept thinking about
Yeah.
it. She kept wanting to come back to see this graffiti art, the mural, and to me, I was kind of like where I thought they might have taken the romantic angle from for the film is. It seems like she was like so drawn to this artwork. Maybe
Yeah.
not Candyman himself, but
well,
still.
specifically the face, right? She's like
Yeah.
extremely haunted by the face art.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
it's kind of implied that she is like under some kind of
Yeah,
spell.
I guess that's
it's
true.
It's kind of implied in the writing. Like also at the end where she's like she keeps having dreams about the dog, and I think she said, or she thinks to herself, like, I don't know why, but I keep thinking that if I don't go save that dog, it's gonna find me. And it's like,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
She keeps
Like
thinking the
irrational
dog is
fear.
gonna find her.
she thinks
Yeah.
the dog is gonna come find her, and it's like,
It's like a irrational.
yeah, it's clearly she is like under some kind of
Yeah.
influence, and that's why she goes back to save a dog from a room. It's like, what? Why? But yeah, it's implied that she's under some kind of influence, which is probably where they got that from in the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of little bits and pieces that they actually take from the short story, which I was very excited to see in the film. I was really surprised by. So
Yeah, I mean, some adaptations are not as good as others at implementing stuff from the story.
Yeah.
This one really took the structure, or not the structure, but elements of it and put it into their own structure and their own spin on it. But you know how like some people are like, oh, they didn't, like it took the spirit of the book, I
Yes.
think, or
Yeah.
the short story,
It's a
Yeah.
really
Very
good
well.
example, honestly,
Yeah.
for, you know,
how to
like-
do an adaptation.
Yeah.
But also putting your own spin on it.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of people get all upset where they don't follow the book or whatever, but I'm not that person. If you want to do something different, go for it.
Yeah.
And I like the way they did that. But they implemented the bits from the story really well to their own purposes.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway from watching all three, and I know our next episode, listen to our next episode. That was my biggest takeaway from all three versions is how they are complementary. Like it's
Yeah.
not that they're like nothing really contradicts. I mean, I didn't watch the sequels like y'all did, so you can share more about that. But in reading the short story and watching the 1992 version and watching the 2021 version, which we will be reviewing, I was like, these all work together to communicate the same core story, which is really cool.
yeah, there's a respect there. Unlike I feel like The Shining, where Stanley Kubrick and the co-writer, they didn't really care for the original book, and
Famously.
they're yes, so they
Famously.
took their own liberties, and we talked about that in our Shining episodes. But this really feels like they respect Clive Barker's work, and they wanted to make it American,
Yeah.
and they did that.
It feels like they got it so well that they were able to swap some things around and keep the spirit of like
Yeah, and
everything
it
that
still
it is.
feels
And
similar.
it still
And
feels
Yeah.
Clive was an executive producer on the
Yeah.
1992 version, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I mean, you know, you don't really know what that means, but like, but you know,
Yeah.
obviously he didn't.
It could
hate
be a
it.
name only.
Yeah.
Yeah, he obviously
I
didn't
think it
disapprove
kind
of
of
it.
was in a way. I think he let
He
the
let them
director
do their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bernard.
Bernard.
Bernard. I was too
Rose.
scared to say his name. Bernard Rose.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I gotta check out some more
I
of his
really
stuff
fucked
though.
with your
I'm
movie, dog. My bad.
Bernard.
interested. Yeah.
Bernard. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, let's very quickly talk about what we prefer. It might be really hard for this one, but
Yeah.
did you have a preference for the short story or the film?
I preferred the movie
Okay.
kind of a lot, but the short story's cool. It's fun, but like I don't the experience that I got out of watching the film, I feel like just was so much more entertaining for me. And like I said, I think it got everything that the short story was like going for. So it's not like I lost anything from the short story. I like only gained an experience from watching the movie. So I think I'd prefer the movie this time. It understood it, adapted things correctly, and gave you more stuff to enjoy, which I think, I don't know, was just, in my opinion, the better version.
Mm-hmm.
Or not
Perfect.
the better version, the version I enjoyed more. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I'd say the same. I think I prefer the film.
Mm.
The short story is really well written though.
Yeah, especially for how short it is. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, he was able
Effective
to
in 50 pages.
yeah,
Yes.
establish so much in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give a speech.
Oh.
Yeah. So what I like about the book is the ambiguity. Because I feel, like I said, I kind of enjoyed that I don't 100% understand Candyman. I think that's part of what's so scary to me about the short stories. I'm like, I don't know what that was. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that. And there's no way I can rationalize it, but it also makes sense still. It's scary. And I think that was extremely effective. So I enjoyed how short it was and how vague it was. And something I didn't like about the movie was that I thought at times it was a little and I think this is partially the point of the movie, is a little uncomfortable with the whole white savior main character situation because race is so obviously, an important part of this story that sometimes in watching it, I was like, this is a little bit of an uncomfortable watch. That being said, I did enjoy the movie. more because of how well they adapted it. And because of all the crazy stories that we just talked about with the bees, with the levitating, it's like you said, Michael, it's a really enjoyable watch, even considering the discomfort that comes with it. It's just a really engaging movie to participate in as a viewer. So for me, it was 1992 movie.
100%. Yeah, I agree with everyone here. I love both, but I would definitely watch the film again. The film really is elevated is when it deviates and we get Helen, the whole Helen being blamed for these murders, I think really added to the story, because in the short story, it is a little repetitive because she's going back and forth between Spectre Street and then at home, and it does get a little repetitive. So I feel like this film knew that and broke away from that and made some smart choices. So, but engage with both, watch both, or read and watch the media. The media. Jesus Christ. Okay.
You got it.
Let's get through this versus that, y'all.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So this is based off looks and vibes for this first one. Do you prefer the Candyman from the story or the Candyman from the film?
Would you like to take this away? Guest of honor.
Listen, it's got to be the Candyman from the film. Come on, it's iconic.
I would have to agree.
Okay.
He's,
That
he's
coat.
just he's so dripped. The fur coat is
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
so
It's so
sick.
good.
100%. Zero doubts. It's the movie.
Easy.
It's like
spooky goblin
it is
man.
iconic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the one from the book, it worked for the book, you know, and the Candyman from the film worked for the film.
Do we ever learn why? Okay, we know in the 2021 version why he's called Candyman, and emphasis on candy. Why is he called Candyman in the book?
Oh,
Or well, I know they give him candy, but like, did
Yeah.
he ask for? Sorry, did he ask for that? Like, why are they doing that?
there is no explanation of the
or
book.
or the 1992 movie? Why candy?
We will
We'll talk about that.
talk about it.
Okay, great.
But she
They-
does
It's
explained
find the
in the
candy
sequel.
in
No.
both the story
Yes.
and the
I
movie.
know that, but like they put that there
Yeah.
for him. So
Yeah.
why it doesn't have to do with his backstory
But
though.
did they put that there for him in the movie too?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
it's
remember.
there.
it's there, yeah,
It's there.
She finds
And the
it-
razors.
Yeah, she finds the candy with the razors in it. She like cuts her finger or something.
Yeah.
And-
Right.
By the way,
Yeah.
there's a weird thing that happens in the movie that I noticed that like anytime he like shows up, someone gets like injured right before it. The movie almost seemed to imply that that's like a part of his summoning is somebody has to like get cut or hurt.
Oh, really?
That happens like 3 times in the movie.
Yeah.
It's never explained, but I feel like it's something that I
Kind
noticed.
of, that's interesting. I didn't notice that.
Like he's drawn to the blood being
Right, right.
spilled or something.
Yeah.
But I don't
No,
know.
that makes that's
yeah,
interesting.
something in the- but no, the 92 version does not explain why he's called Candyman ever. They don't acknowledge it.
yeah, they in
You're
the
right, you're
sequel. I forget if it's the second or the third one. I think it's the third one where they give a lot of flashbacks to his death. You actually see it, and
Ooh,
yeah.
one of the kids that is part of the mob. This child is watching this guy get murdered. He said they put honey on him, and he's like, we should call. What was the line? He basically comes up with the name.
I think I don't know if there's a whole line. I thought he just like points at him. Was like, he's like a Candyman or something like that.
Yeah.
And then like the bees attack him or something.
So a child gives him that name, which
Yeah.
seems
Oh.
fitting that a child would give him the name.
it was.
It is kind of a childish name, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
like making fun of him after they
Yeah.
cut his arm off.
But it's like it's like those horror, like those scary stories kids tell each other. Oh, the Candyman! Watch out! for
Yeah.
the Candyman."
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
there's kind of a different explanation in the 2021 version.
Yes,
they just
but we'll
kinda,
talk about that.
They just kind of ignore it. They ignore the original.
Well, that's what I kind of liked about the
agree.
2021
I
version
also
is
agree.
that
Hey,
it basically
save it. Next episode. No
one
one's
thing I
getting
liked
heated.
for this
Little
movie-
sneak
Listen to the next episode.
Okay.
I think of all the explanations of why he's called Candyman, I like the 2021 version the
Yeah,
most.
100%.
It makes
Okay.
sense.
I like it.
Okay.
That's
so
your teaser for the next episode.
this one, I just want you to say just gut instinct. Don't think about it. Please don't think about it. Don't ask me
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to ask you questions.
God damn it.
Go ahead though.
Bee-filled flesh versus razor blade-filled candy.
Oh, obviously razor blade filled candy. Are you kidding?
I think bees.
What?
I don't like
filled flesh?
I don't want to
Bees.
be sliced. No.
You want it in your skin.
Well, she didn't even explain what she said not to think.
Yeah, don't think about
That
it.
was my first instinct.
That's her gut instinct. That's
Mine
your
was
gut instinct.
because I'll be like,
Uh,
I'll spit it out.
yeah, razor blade candy.
That's me spitting out razor
Yeah,
blades.
it'll be that effective.
It might cut on my tongue. That would suck for
That
sure.
would
But
suck.
bees in my skin?
Yeah.
No. What about you, Michael?
Yeah.
I go razor
He
blade
said
candy.
razor blade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Razor blade couch.
Okay.
What about-
Razor blade couch.
Loud razor blades.
I wanted to choose bee filled flesh because visually that looks cool. Razor blade filled candy
Aesthetic.
is such like a parent's worst fear that like never happens.
Oh yeah, we all
you
grew
know?
up with those stories.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like,
I
that's
don't
so
think it was ever
boring.
real though, right? They never
No.
proved.
I
They were
don't
never
think that
proven
ever
to be
actually
real.
happened.
I don't think
Razor
so.
That's
blades and
that's the
Halloween candy.
example I'm sure it comes from this, right?
Yeah, it might.
I mean, it very well
Probably.
might.
Yeah.
Because of this is where the hook man comes. I mean, you know what I mean? Like all
Man,
of these
hand, hard door. Or whatever.
hook man hand car door.
Yeah. Well, it's mixing a lot. It's mixing Bloody Mary
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this
yeah.
new story with the candy.
Right.
I
Which
wonder where
might-
it came from.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're
I wanted to add 5 times to say his name seems very over the.
Well, because
that's
he has
excessive.
deliberate. It's
If I was
deliberate.
Candyman, I would wait. You know what I mean? Like 3 times, maybe you know.
It's
Four,
dramatic.
that's a
3
lot.
times makes
You
sense.
gotta
you
really
want me
commit.
there. You want me there
It's
5
just
times.
You can
Seems like a
accidentally
lot.
say his name a couple times. you know?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, saying
Or
it
like,
5 times on accident, not
No.
possible.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
really know what you're
Obnoxious.
doing.
Yeah,
Also,
100%.
am I the
There's
only one
zero
who loses
ambiguity.
count on how many times they said it? So if someone said it 4 times, I'll be like, oh, did
Like-
they?
They
Yeah.
keep
They're like-
pausing to
Yeah.
make it dramatic.
Yeah.
I would lose count and then, oh, they didn't finish it. Okay.
Yeah,
My brain.
yeah.
And then somebody else could finish it for you, and then
I
yeah.
was wondering
Yeah.
about that. Can they?
They
Okay.
can.
Also,
It
it seems like
happens.
it.
Sometimes they would talk in between. I'd be like, that counts.
Does that-
Like,
What are the rules?
Yeah.
I need to know.
They
Also,
totally
another
go
thing
for
that
it.
scares me, sorry, is mirrors. Mirrors are scary.
That's
the
fair.
way that they use mirror, like the
have
fact
you ever
that.
seen a ghost in a mirror?
Well, I scare myself a lot. I'm very
Oh.
jumpy, so like I'll see something in the corner. I'm like,
Yeah,
but it's not any like every movie. You know it's gonna happen when they close the medicine cabinet and there's someone behind
you.
you.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it still gets
Staple.
me. That's one of my.
I jumped when the Candyman appeared behind her.
In
the beginning?
the medicine cabinet one was a good one.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. That whole plot where the babysitter and the boyfriend
Oh, the
get
Right,
killed.
right.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's in
yeah.
it. That's in the very beginning. And oh my gosh, when he appeared, that scared me so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, that's like in universe a story Helen is being told by one of the people she's interviewed.
The
Yes.
student.
Right,
Yeah.
that she's
Yeah.
being told the first instance
Yeah,
of her
I
hearing
heard about this
Candy.
babysitter that
Yes.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
We get to like see it. That's like the intro to the movie, I think, right? It's the first, other
Yeah.
than the
Yeah,
big
for
And you
weird.
get to
No.
see him.
Yeah, it's true. It
Just
scared
a
me.
flash of him though.
Yep.
All right. Last this versus that, y'all. In terms of setting, which do you prefer, Cabrini Green or Spectre Street?
That's a tough one.
It's hard.
Cabrini Green.
Okay.
Wait, what is this
Spectre
or that? Is it
Street?
where I would like to live, or is it
It's
where
just what setting do
live
you
in either
prefer?
one.
I don't want to live in either one.
I think
this or
Cabrini
that.
Green
Cabrini Green for
I
sure.
think it was
setting
more-
wise. Yeah.
Okay.
easy to understand, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we were talking about how we were able to visualize the specific room better in the short story, I like the setting of Cabrini Green visually more. The Spectre Street feels more like bland. And
That might
just
be
like,
because we're American
Yeah.
readers
Yeah,
and
we don't
season
have
watchers.
the-
That I understand Cabrini Green better than I
Yes.
understand Spectre Street.
Yeah.
I
we've
don't.
all
I don't.
been to
I don't get
LA.
it.
We've seen similar looking places.
Yeah.
I just don't understand Spectre Street. I don't understand the bonfire. I don't understand like how there's a procession. Maybe this is just British culture.
Yeah.
I don't know, but for me, for some reason, Cabrini Green, I get it.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
agree.
I am going to be the only one to disagree.
Oh,
I like
oh.
Spectre Street for
The
the
one
reasons
British
I
person on the
mentioned.
couch. Oh, curious.
I know. Because, like I mentioned, I could totally envision Spectre Street. Like, it was so clear in my brain. I could imagine the gloomy gray skies of London or wherever. Where'd you say?
Liverpool.
Yeah, so I was
Liverpool.
like, Cabrini Green is such a fun name to say. I like
Yeah.
saying Cabrini Green.
It's a great name.
It's a good name.
It's the ease.
The,
you know?
yes. Spectre Street is still cool and creepy. But yeah, I think I liked Spectre Street more.
Wow.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We're at the end. Any final thoughts before? Okay. Before we close it out.
Dude, I've done that like 3 times this episode. I don't know
Dude,
why.
You just
Yeah.
clapped. Really? I did not
Nobody
notice.
noticed.
I
No.
noticed.
You noticed.
What?
I know. I think we're good. We're good on final thoughts.
Okay. And those are your thoughts.
That's the end, folks. Drop
Wow.
Cabrini Green in the comments.
What What do you prefer, Cabrini Green or Spectre Street? Alrighty. So next episode, we are going to be looking at Candyman 2021. Since it's kind of a sequel, we're basically going to point out what it pulled from the books, like the references it pulled from the book, the references from the original film. So that's how it's going to be slightly different than our usual format. But yeah, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, because there's not TikTok anymore.
Whoa.
Maybe
Instagram.
you're gonna date us
dating
as
us.
soon as we release
Dating
this.
us
It's
again.
gonna be back.
It might be back.
Oh, really?
We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
We'll see. As
Yeah.
of now, we're on Instagram and Facebook at Dreadful Digest Pod. So follow us on all the things, especially Instagram, because I'm going to be putting more Instagram exclusive content on there. So go ahead and follow us. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Sibia, for joining us. She's going to be back next
Having me.
episode. She'll be back.
She's gonna be back.
She's going to be back. But yeah, thank you for watching, y'all, and listening. Goodbye.
Bye bye. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.